Start. Okay. Call the meeting to order, the City of University Heights City Council meeting, Tuesday, August 21st. Been away for a little bit, forgot to put the mic in front of me. The meeting tonight's at 8 o'clock in the community center, and roll call. The four council are here. Dottie is going to arrive late, so we're going to go ahead and start. And so the first order of business is approval of minutes, July 10th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I know there were some controversy about the minutes. Would anyone like to talk about the minutes?
I'd like a correction to the minutes, please.
Okay, what?
So the line that was changed from council consensus to not move forward with Triangle Park, I'd like that to read, so it was changed and published as the council failed to approve the Triangle Park renovations. I'd like that changed back to council consensus to postpone Triangle Park renovations due to timing, cost, and design concerns.
Okay, is that in the form of a motion?
Okay,
You move that?
I'll move that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Virginia. Discussion?
I think Dottie was the one who had all the concerns, right? She's not present. Would the council object to having this particular adoption of the minutes tabled until she is here to present her information?
Do we know what time she'll be getting here?
I don't know, but we've done it before.
We already held the meeting until 8 for her schedule.
I think the whole meeting got changed, so I'm just saying, so she's the one with the most vested interest in any modifications. I think just as a courtesy, it might be wise to table it until she comes back.
I'd say we go ahead and get this done now.
Okay, and
I don't agree with the way the change was made by Dottie, and so I think it's fair to go back to the way that.
is there any other objection to go ahead? Okay, there's a motion and second to change it back to the original. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Is there any abstain?
I am.
Okay.
It's incomplete, in my opinion, so.
Okay, one abstain and Dottie's not here. Then we go to public input. Would anyone like to speak tonight? Paul. Welcome, Paul. Okay, thank you.
First off, I'm real pleased with the new signs listed, no parking on game days, that have been put up on Golfview. I haven't been all over University Heights looking at them, but at least they're big enough so people notice them, and they're very obvious in our troubled area where we always have problems. The rest of these items, I'm telling you what I'm doing or what I would like to have done, because you usually get the complaints. Nobody ever complains to me, so I want you to know my reasoning why I'm doing things in regard to the games. This year I'm going to try to have recycle containers on my property. They will be large blue plastic barrels with yellow plastic liners for cans and plastic bottles. There will also be green 5-gallon buckets for collection of glass bottles. Hopefully this will reduce the volume on trash. The recycle items will be handled by and benefit the Solon Boy Scout troop. Like all previous football seasons, I'll be setting out 55-gallon steel barrels on my property. I will have some of these barrels sitting on the sidewalk close to the curb along 1006 Melrose Avenue. These barrels need to be near the street to keep the bees away from the crowds of people and away from where food and drink are being served at 1006 Melrose Avenue Stella's. So I know you don't want anything in the sidewalks, but you're going to have 55-gallon barrels like I've always done. With the football schedule with the late starting games, I cannot haul trash to the Iowa City landfill during the game because it closes at 4 p.m. I'm renting a large dumpster to have by my building garages to store this trash over the weekend. This trash will be stored in a closed dumpster to keep the raccoons out. Stella and I would like to have the Iowa state law for no smoking and no vapor cigarettes be enforced and persons ticketed for smoking on the public sidewalk and within 25 feet of the entrance or the open patio areas. Otherwise, the smoke is drawn into Stella's by the exhaust fans. This should be a moneymaker for University Heights. I've had signs posted for years for this. Can that be done and enforced? Or do we have to have the state highway patrol do it?
I think the 25 feet can be, but not any public,
Yeah.
not any public sidewalk.
Adopt it like that.
But the 25 feet is already part of the Clean Air Act, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna look at the terms.
He's gonna
right
look
now.
it up here.
I think it would be wise for us to probably have some yard signs placed throughout the city right-of-way, warning people that we have a no smoking in public spaces, just so people are not caught off guard. Versus-
Signs have been
It's
there
only
for
indoor,
years.
though.
I got,
Well, how about outside?
It doesn't apply to outside.
We didn't put it for the, that's right, because of the enforcement issue. Okay.
well, the point is, the building isn't that far back from the sidewalk.
Well, we have a
14 feet.
nuisance. Steve,
And
can you
so-
opine on nuisance, how that would apply?
I don't think that smoking would probably be seen as a public nuisance.
But there are multiple business entrances along Melrose there. It's not just you, it's also the dentist office. So can't that 25 feet apply to every business entrance, and that would cover most of that sidewalk, yeah? No?
That's a Steve question.
Okay.
It's a civil penalty anyway. It's not a criminal infraction, which we can still enforce under the city's adoption of that. But Steve would have to answer the exact what that would be.
Maybe we should continue.
Do you have anything else while he's looking that up?
Yeah, it's my understanding that any cars left parked on the grass of private property will be ticketed by University Heights and towed away at the owner's expense if left after 11:59 p.m. of any game day. Is that correct? That's the
That's
ordinance
possible.
that you've been
That is
messing with.
Correct.
So that means University Heights has an administrative fee of $150 plus the additional charge for towing charge will be the owner's expense. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. This year, I'm not allowing any tailgaters to set up tents along the sidewalk or street. I'm trying to keep all the tailgaters that rent from me to stay on my property and not block the sidewalk or the street. I got a question. Does University Heights have an ordinance about obscene T-shirts? There's usually some indecent T-shirts that sure do not fit the spirit of the game day or the residential theme of University Heights.
He sells them in Iowa City on the bridge.
He used to. That was discussed.
He used to? I've seen him every
he
year.
Will, the university, I'll just leave it at the university is going to address that this year.
Oh,
They
okay.
have plans to handle that. So,
Because he's not in University Heights. He's
yeah,
on.
they will not be allowing that
I see.
anymore. So,
Yeah.
But
He's
the
always on the
problem
bridge.
just is, like Iowa State students come with some of the most god-awful statements.
Yeah, I know.
And do we have any way of enforcing that, or do you want to develop a new ordinance?
Sounds like a First Amendment issue to me.
yeah. I mean,
And we can't restrict the content of what somebody's shirt says. Selling it's a different thing.
Right.
But the city doesn't have the power to tell people they can't wear.
Okay.
Profanities or any other, yeah.
So
Well, it's
Steve,
something that happens every football season, and it's kind of embarrassing
No, I,
as the property owner to see what the younger generation
now,
exhibits.
now let me ask you a question, Steve. Since he is a property owner and he has tailgaters, could he put a clause in his agreement restricting the wearing of offensive language on his property as a condition and term to his tailgating permit?
It would be a
I could
trespassing.
do that, but it's people on the sidewalk
Yeah.
and people going to the store
Sure.
or the Stellas. And I hate to be nitpicky, but this is what we've been doing for 6 months, so I thought I'd bring it up. The last thing is, in regards to porta-potties, I usually have 5 of them behind my fence at the building, and this year I have 6. I'm gonna put a padlock on that gate because the porta-potties don't come with any hasp, so you can lock them. I don't know how I'm gonna deal with the one behind the garage at 116 Gulfview other than tying a rope or a cinch belt or something around it so a child can't get in it. But all the porta-potties around the university campus do not have a lock hasp on them. Thank you.
so
Thank you, Paul.
Thank
Steve,
you.
are you seeing that they can prohibit it in outdoor patios if there's food served, but there's no
Yeah, I don't.
other
think-
additional?
Right. I don't see that there's just like on a public sidewalk.
Right.
I don't think that's a violation of the Smoke-Free Air Act.
So since Stella serves food and it's patio, then the restriction applies to the patios. But it doesn't appear that there's any restriction on outdoor areas outside of that, from what I'm seeing quickly.
It does say that smoking is prohibited in a public place, but then it starts talking about outdoor areas, like those are different. It doesn't say enclosed public place. I guess, I mean, I'm kind of doing this on the fly, which I
There's
don't
a-
mind doing, but I just,
There's a definition of public place. It's
oh, it does, but you're right. The public place is defined as an enclosed area to which the public is invited. So you take the definition and then say public place, so I don't think it's prohibited on a sidewalk.
Okay.
But I mean, if it's something that is concerning in terms of where people are smoking, and if the police wanted to, they could probably give like a littering ordinance if they have a cigarette and then flick the cigarette butt, I'm guessing. I mean, if that's an issue.
Would anyone else like to speak to the council? No, it's not. Thank you. Pete, why don't you go ahead?
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to let you know that we're going to be having the 3rd annual fundraiser for the neighborhood centers of Johnson County down at Stella on Sunday, September 30th. This year, Paul has graciously allowed us to use the green space across the street for it. I'd like to ask for a noise variance for that time period to be from 4 to 6:30 on a Sunday afternoon. The activities there will be, our band will be playing during that time, as well as another local band that will be joining us. And the money is going to go towards a child program at the neighborhood centers that around biking and bike racing and things like that to help support that. And just was wondering if there were any questions or anything that we should be thinking about or concerned about with those activities. We'll have a grill set up, food sales, things like that, like we've done in the past.
No. So we'll move up consideration of resolution number
thank you.
1830. Thank you, Pete. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt?
Motion by Sylvia. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nick. Roll call vote.
Miller,
Aye.
Moore, Maher, Casada,
Aye.
Herbold,
Aye.
carried.
Very good. Hi, Lori. And then, let's see. Dottie's still not here, so we should go down to some of the mayor's report. And first of all, since the hotel developers are here and are dying to talk, let's let them start with an update on what's going on with the construction. Jim or Greg, thanks for coming.
Well, I'll give you a report. Mine's mostly on physical construction that we've done so far. The site is graded and cleared now, and the existing house is gone. The utilities, sewer, water, they're all capped off and secured. The old utilities are. We actually found that there was a couple abandoned sewers in there, and we got rid of those. And then we had to go back with the City of Iowa City and actually remark quite a bit of the water lines. The Olive Court houses that are adjacent to the property, we found all of their stop boxes and located that, and we've worked that out with City of Iowa City, so they know where everything is now. And then we made a deal with the condominium association to the south. We're doing some joint easements with them, and we're going to have some joint trash with them where we can reduce the number of trash containers that we have there. And then we're also we're gonna share maintenance on the street, and we're working out some parking issues with them. So those agreements are pretty well worked out. We've stubbed in the sanitary sewer, so in other words, we've already got the sanitary sewer stubbed into the property. We've tapped into the manhole that's actually out in the Woodside Drive's private street. And then we're bringing up a storm sewer clear down by the pond. We're bringing that up into the site, and that's pretty much up to the corner of the property right now. And then we're going to expand on that, and we'll create some water retention basins temporarily. And in September, we've got Joe Witters is coming to start the retaining wall, which will actually bring the whole site up to kind of a flat grade. So he's starting about September 1st. And then in that same time period, we're going to be putting in a 300-foot long by 25 feet wide underground water retention basin. And we're just finishing up the final designs on that. We'll get that to Terry Gert, and I think Josiah probably looks at that too. So, what? Oh, he has to look at the wall too. Okay, all right. So we've got some submittals, and we're going to be given to Josiah and Terry Gert, the inspector. So that's we're still waiting on some structural work from the structural engineer. We've got the foundation plans are done, and all the civil engineering plans are completed now. So we're just waiting on some of the upper structural work. We had a little bit of wrench thrown in the works with the restaurant because that added quite a bit of structural work on the foundation, as well as putting the sixth floor on. He's had to do some redesigning. Plus, we added one elevator too. So there was some reconfiguration there of some of the interior parts of the building. Those are in progress now. We're supposed to have the structural work done. You know, he's claiming September 1st, but he hasn't really been on time here lately. So but hopefully all of those plans will be done. Greg's been working out a deal with a local restaurateur. We went down to Martini's, which is a restaurant in Burlington. If anybody's been there, that owner wants to locate here. So it's an awesome restaurant. I was just blown away. So we're trying to work with him. He's drawn up plans for the restaurant now, and those will be incorporated. We still have some franchise and financial issues to work out with him, but I think it's all gonna work out. So,
Are there any questions?
What's your plan for keeping the site safe from football crowds?
well, we're going to start fencing here this week. As soon as I actually was over there tonight starting, I brought over a whole load of stakes, and and we'll be fencing off any of the little 2-foot drop-offs that we have, and then we've got some chain link sections if we need any bigger areas. But that's all going to take place in this coming week, and hopefully it'll dry up a little bit more. It was pretty muddy, but we're going to have a couple rock driveways that'll go in. Plus, we'll be spreading some of that mulch in certain areas too. And then tomorrow I've got a bunch of sock being delivered, so that we'll start placing that around too. So, but what I'm trying to do is get the storm sewer up into the property where I can create my own retention basin, and we can take care of any runoff that we have. As soon as we flatten it out, it won't be quite so bad. And it's getting close to where we don't have huge runoff issues.
So I didn't fully follow. What will by the first football game, what will the fence look like in terms of what people can access or not access?
Well, it's going to be a combination. We'll have a couple gravel roads that'll sort of loop in through there, which are going to end up being construction roads. And then if we park anybody, it's going to be mulch. But we're not. We've only got figured maybe 70 spaces there that we'll actually park people.
Oh, so you are parking people there this year?
Pardon me?
You are parking people there this year?
Yeah, we have 70, which is pretty much what we have all the time next door. So, but if it's a dry day, we'll probably have some people that'll just come in off the street. But right now we have 70 that we have for certain want to come there. So.
Do you have a lot of people contacting you that you can't fit on your property?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been involved in that too much. I'm just involved in the getting the parking ready. But I don't know if Greg knows. Yeah.
I mean, we have plenty of other space to park people, but we're not like advertising.
What we're actually do is we're going to move all the construction equipment back towards the railroad side and fence it off. And then if there's any space left over, which usually you can park 60 or 70 cars per acre. We've got 4 acres there, so we could probably park quite a few more if it works out. But if it's muddy, I'm not going to get into that.
But tailgating is really not your priority.
No, not at all.
So
No.
if it came down to my concern here is, what's the focus? Is it tailgating or accommodations or ensuring that the site remains safe without any risks of somebody, entangling it in litigation or
Oh,
something
absolutely.
because of a
Yeah, we'll have a
bad
fence.
fall or
We'll have a
something.
fence completely along the sidewalk there to the south, and just funnel people up to there's kind of a nice dry flat part up in the it'd be the southwest corner. That's about all I want to let anybody use.
Jim, is this just temporary?
Yeah, no, I don't even know how many games. Once I start that water retention basin, it's 300 feet long, so I'm going to have to fence off
But
approximately.
your plan is not for any kind of parking for football when you get the hotel developed?
Yeah, not anything that's going to get in the way of construction. I mean,
No, I don't mean after, I mean after the construction. It's not going to be available for
Oh,
parking?
yeah, no, we need it
Okay.
for the hotel
Okay.
and the restaurant now. So, and I don't know, Dottie, if you heard, but I mean, we're negotiating a deal with a restaurateur right now. So, I think we'll have the restaurant space leased about the time we get the building done. And he's planning to open up just a month or two after we open the hotel and kind of just work it right in. So, yeah, so I think everything is going pretty well, and I think the only thing I don't want to do is I don't want to start and get too far ahead of myself until I know exactly what we're doing is with this
Right.
restaurant and the design of the building, and we're pretty close there, but we're still a month away, I think, from having the final structural designs and incorporating the restaurant into that design. Because like I say, we had to add an elevator for him, and that's a major addition. So,
Can you remind me what the target completion date is to get
December of
open?
2019.
yeah,
Okay.
That's what I saw.
unless Greg has something to say, I guess I'm.
Would you come up to the microphone? This is televised.
I just had a quick question for Josiah. We have foundation plans completed. That's something you want to review, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yep.
we'll get those to you.
That's the next step, as I
Yeah.
recall, that you were going to submit.
I wanted to submit foundation and structurals to you at the same time, but it just didn't happen. So it's just foundation right now.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Sounds good.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll see you next month at the next meeting. Thank you so much. We'll go back to Dottie's report, streets and sidewalks. Do you want to go to the engineer, or what do you want to?
Yeah, well, I need Josiah's input here too, but we have managed to complete the new signs for no towing on football days and gotten rid of the little ones so that they should be highly visible. And I spoke with John Irvine again today, and it was my understanding some months ago that this was going to be done, but apparently it hadn't been done. So the sign that says no parking to corner, that will remain because that is an estimated number of feet between the signage and the intersection. But the other sign, which is sort of a totem pole of a potpourri of signs, will be moved from his property to another property on Lemur. And we are now negotiating, or the city is checking it out to be sure that we can move it and that there isn't any electrical
Utilities, yeah.
utility or
I
anything.
see.
So I figure by maybe Monday, we should be able to get that moved for John.
And have you talked to the other property owner?
I'm sorry.
Have you talked to the other property owner?
No, Josiah is doing that. It doesn't matter who it is because we can put it anywhere.
So the spot's been marked out for the next property to the south, sharing the property line between the two. Like,
Yeah.
Most of the signs anywhere generally are put on the property line. So that's what's been marked out, and you're correct. The one call is
Yeah.
what we're waiting for, which
Yeah.
should be complete at the end of the day tomorrow.
Hmm. Because there's already one sign up at the corner of the condominium development.
Mhm.
So there'll be two on that side.
Just seems like you might want to give a heads up to the next property owner who's
Well-
going to be getting a sign.
Well, that's cost of doing business. It just has to be relocated, so.
Well, not just relocated, but I think we learned from bus ports and
Well-
all that nice stuff that at least a courtesy notice
Well,
is valuable. So
Josiah can
Usually
is
it's
that
the
take care of
counselor's
that.
job.
process, Josiah?
Not to move the sign, but
No, but I mean to give notice to the new onboarding property that will be hosting the sign.
it
We
has
can
not
just-
occurred, no.
We
That's
generally
the
don't.
job of the council.
Yeah,
do
the
that.
council can do it, but we generally don't do it because we have, we can relocate these anywhere.
Pretty administrative, I would.
Well, it doesn't matter,
No, I'm not saying
really.
it's you, I'm just saying this is pretty administrative, I don't know why council should have to do it. If a form letter template could be developed by engineering and just sent in the course of similar situations like this. And if there's any disputes, they should be coming up to council.
So.
Does
let's-
council want to have Josiah make a form letter?
Yeah, we
No,
could
I mean, if it's your committee, I think you should talk to the person
Why?
because it's a neighbor in the community who's.
But it doesn't matter
So
because
what are
it
you going
has
to do
to
when she
be.
complains that she's got a sign and now she has two signs in her yard and she wants one?
No,
removed?
she will not have two signs in her
Okay.
yard. There's no other sign up the street.
Okay, I think she should be notified. I think she should be notified by a counselor whose committee this is, which would be you, Dottie.
I think
If
it's
you want to pass it
extra.
on to Josiah, then we can pay Josiah to do it.
There is
But
no
this
need
the
to
kind
do
of thing
that.
that council should handle.
Because the council can relocate the signs. Metropolitan Planning relocates them anytime.
Yeah, I think you can relocate the sign. I'm not disputing that. I just
Yeah.
think you should tell
Well,
the
that's
homeowner.
an opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
Also, I'm collecting information now about the citizens that are in violation of the trees that occlude the sidewalks or the streets, the trees that are hanging over the streets. So we'll be sending those letters.
The tree board typically handles that. Who's collecting that information?
Well, I thought it was my job. I thought that,
Okay. Are we paying somebody to do that?
pardon?
Who's collecting that information?
The citizens will be paying, and I was going to go around and cite the locations.
Okay.
Are you doing that?
The tree board has taken that on. Yeah, they have plans.
Including the sidewalks?
Are you talking about something different?
Is a resolution for that?
No.
No, sorry, never mind. I'm sorry, please.
I just want someone to do it. So if you want to do it, that's
No,
fine.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Okay, because I mean, for example, I was walking on George.
That's what,
Did it last year.
I was walking on George yesterday, and
yeah, but the tree board voluntarily does the measuring. So,
they do the sidewalks as well. I mean, if you're doing it's fine. I just want to be sure somebody.
we've done it, yeah, we've done it.
They did
3
it last
years.
year.
I think we've done it more than just last year. Yeah, this is the third year we've done it. That in the
Okay.
late summer, they go around with the measuring stick, which is in my garage right now,
Okay,
and
good.
measure for height and clearance, and then give notices.
Well, in addition to
But-
the trees, there's shrubbery growing. And I know that I was walking on George between Highland and Kosher yesterday, and the sidewalk is all occluded.
Yeah.
And I also I took some pictures, and also there are issues with the property maintain issue because the garage is a shambles with peeling paint and everything, and then the front steps, the concrete is all broken down. So as part of streets and sidewalks, I'm checking that out. But if you want to do the tree things, that's just fine.
Yeah, vegetation clearance, the tree board has plans to check that on September 5th.
Okay.
September 6th,
5th.
5th, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Were you aware of that?
No.
No, I'm pretty sure it's in my report.
You were going to report it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're okay with that?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
someone
that's-
else
it's in-
wants to do it.
It's in my report.
Fine. But I've been getting complaints about overgrowth on the sidewalks.
Sure.
So
Yes.
that's my concern.
Uh,
Okay.
Okay, is that everything?
I think so.
Okay, so we'll go to Josiah's engineer report.
Oh, I want to have one other comment, Josiah will also clarify. The bus stop, which we were supposed to have had implemented a year ago over on Sunset for Grandview,
Mm-hmm.
still isn't there, so I asked Josiah to check that out.
I did make a request to Iowa City Transit for an update. If you recall, the last one we got was they had the order in and they were getting it, but it probably wouldn't be till this summer or fall,
Yeah,
is what they said.
Here we are, so
So I
what did they
did not
say?
get a return message.
Have they
so-
answered you?
Pardon me?
Have they answered you?
No, I did not get an update.
I'm annoyed about that because Grandview entered into this agreement with us, and it was our understanding that the three of us were partners. I just think it has to be in there. I just am quite annoyed.
Well, they told you late summer or fall, so.
Yeah, that was the last update we got.
Okay.
So, do you want me to call and see what I can find out, or will you follow up again tomorrow?
I will.
I mean, just bug them.
Yeah, you can too if you want.
Well, you
I
can just bug them. I mean, because I want an answer.
Okay. Not a problem. Okay. My items from the report 4 and 5. I did want to follow up on the street sweeping from Pelling, the invoice.
Oh, right.
I just sent a note that I asked them as a follow-up. They said they redid all the streets. I don't know if that took care of the issues or not. They said they weren't aware of any more.
They did
Items
not
with
do
it?
Glencrest.
Okay.
The street sweeper came down Gulfview and then turned around, and I flagged him down and said he forgot a street, and he wouldn't go back to do it. So, whatever.
Did they
It's only
explain
one
why?
house, but it's really a mess because it hasn't been done for 2 years now.
Yeah. Did they explain why they had such an issue last time, or why they have any feedback on that at all?
She just told me that it's usually somebody new every year. It's not like the same person who does it year after year after year. So there's some teaching, and so she had them say, well, go back and redo it.
Virginia, what are your thoughts about your street?
You know, it's only one house that's affected. It's not my house, it's my neighbor's house.
I think it was
You have
isolated
to walk
with,
through a good half-inch of sludge now after it rains when you walk down there. It's pretty
But-
gross.
Did they give a reason for not wanting to go back?
I think he just didn't
well, you can't do it
understand that it's a
endlessly.
city street. I mean, it doesn't look like a city street. It's pretty hard to understand.
But you caught him while he was
Yeah.
on like
Mhm.
Golf View or something like that.
The same person, the same trainee that was sent back?
I don't know if it was the same person.
So
Hopefully
you'll
we'll get
make
it-
a note,
Hopefully we'll get
Josiah.
it next year. I'll go
For
shovel
next
the
I
year.
think it was isolated streets, Virginia, because I didn't have a problem over in my neighborhood.
But your neighborhood is more prominent. I guess we have a bigger issue of delivery on the service, so.
I mean, I don't know that Clayton's all that bothered by it.
Well, that's
but-
the other thing. What's
so.
the risk of asking?
You know, I wasn't aware of that, but I do know that we've stressed to them that Glencrest is a portion, 'cause that was like 3 years ago where they missed it. And, I mean, I know every year that I've talked to her, I'm like, you know, Glencrest, that little thing. And she's like, yeah, we keep pushing that. So I don't know what she's going to say.
I would say just pay it this year and we'll try again next year.
I can make a note. You guys could pay a portion of it and withhold a retainage.
I'm not trying to nickel and dime them.
You know what
I
I
was
mean?
just kind of curious what happened there. But yeah, so just be you're fine. The future, just emphasize that in some way.
Maybe they start with Glencrest.
And so that warrant is on the list of warrants. Yes, Paul, you wanted to comment?
I know when Pellings came the first go-around, they left a very large deposit on the curve of Melrose Avenue on the south side across the street from my vacant lot. And they didn't clean up in front of my building, and that could have been because there was a car parked there or something. I wasn't there when they did the street. But I think they could be a little better at cleaning up, and especially when they have a deposit of waste and unload the machine, I assume that they have to haul it away is why it didn't get cleaned up. But that might be mentioned too, that the first go around, and I don't know if anybody else was aware of it, but I know at that council meeting, Dottie said, well, they'd been here and done it already, and I said I couldn't believe it the way it looked. So that's my only statement. So
Paul, what happened to that material?
they did come back and clean that up.
Okay.
I can't tell you when, but
Okay.
Can I just make a recommendation that maybe going forward, we should have city maintenance before we, councilors, pay a warrant for big services like this, that we have city maintenance drive around and see if, you know, these big lumps of leftover heaps or something are there or aren't. And that a report be made to the chairperson and the city engineer who engages Peller or whomever.
That's the job of the chairperson.
Well, that's kind of what happened this time.
what's the job
I
of
mean,
maintenance?
this has been a bill that's been
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying
long
going
going, but you're
forward,
just saying
we need to have
policy.
a quality assurance process, because we're just, going along and trying to put patches on operations, patches here, patches there. And it's been 3 years that we have a bigger issue with now sludge. And we have another citizen who says, it's impossible to believe that the work was completed with the stuff that was left over on the street. All I'm saying is, just do a Q&A as soon as the work is performed.
Mhm.
Report back that it's done satisfactory or not. Let's not wait until another month goes by. And let's do it with a cost center that isn't $150 an hour. Let's do it with a cost center that's $30 an hour.
Let's do it with a
Which is
cost
saving-
center that's $800 a year.
So, I'm sorry,
Let's do it with a cost center that's $800 a year.
who's that?
The chairperson. This is like, these are tasks that have always been done by the chairperson.
Well, that's the operative word, always. I'm just saying, let's get a better way than always. Because we're here how many months, Louise, trying to get this paid?
April, let's see, it was done
Too long.
April, then it
Too long.
was done later on. So now it's August.
Right.
But, so you're suggesting the chairperson, streets and sidewalks?
Do what? I mean, you have to wait for the citizens to complain.
No, you
Well,
don't.
you
I mean,
drive around and,
Well, yeah, but see what I would perceive as a problem, someone else might or might not. But I think when we call them, we certainly need to have a list of specific addresses that are complaining. Because I think the last time, you just can't call them to come back and do the city over. Because, all of it wasn't bad. So, but until, someone complains about it, how would I know about it?
You would drive around and look, because
Oh,
otherwise we just have.
But see, I
piecemeal.
didn't see a problem with sand and that kind of thing because I wasn't looking. Sand is, understandable for me. I just can't see that was a big deal.
Oh.
So, I mean,
Now we know.
so the chairperson
I'm just
doesn't want to
saying,
do
if
it?
you wait for
Okay.
someone to complain, you're going to get piecemeal complaints.
well, that's what you got anyhow because it was a piecemeal job. Never mind. It's something that should be done in-house by a worker bee that we're paying $30 an hour.
I'll volunteer to do it then. I
Mm.
mean, no, I don't want to pay somebody $30 an hour to do something that is part of our job.
I see
This
part
is-
of our job.
We're
Well,
here
it
to keep the city
depends
running.
upon
We're
the
here to oversee contracts.
job
This is the
description.
job.
Okay,
motion
thank you,
adoption of the
Virginia.
warrants.
You're going to volunteer.
I motion adoption of the warrant to pay Pella. With a
Oh,
call.
we're going to do it with the warrants, if that's okay.
All right.
I'm sorry. But
Okay,
you wanted,
my other item then is the payment marking quote received and distributed to everybody. There's a resolution attached and up there for the pavement markings to be done this fall. We received one quote. We talked to 4 contractors. 2 of them were interested in reviewing it for the quote, and of those 2, one of them submitted, which is LL Pelling, their painting division.
Is that fewer responses than we've had in the past?
We've never done a quote process for the painting before.
Okay. And LL Pelling is generally the
They've
the
done the
person that's
painting.
done the painting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And unlike street sweeping, we've had satisfactory experiences with them on painting. Yeah.
So it-
How many vendors did you approach?
We talked to 4,
How did you select them?
looking at contractors who've done pavement marking painting on projects we've been involved with.
Are they
And
all in Johnson County?
Are they all in Johnson County? One of them is out of Des Moines,
Mm-hmm.
but like I thought, and they're high demand,
Mm-hmm.
and they do big projects, and they said they weren't going to come and do the small one.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy I talked to primarily does parking lots. It did not have the equipment, like the truck equipment to do long street lines. I did not send it to them because I didn't want, it's not work that can be done by hand out there. It needs to be with the truck.
Okay.
And then so we talked to Pelling, who we know has done it and can do it. And then we talked with Advanced Traffic, who does a lot of pavement marking work. And actually, we talked with Advanced Electric, who is an electric company, but they do some traffic control. But they said they don't have the equipment to do the long lines in the trucks, and they usually hire Pelling to do that for them. So that's how we got down to those 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pelling is the only one that returned the quote.
I'll motion adoption of number 1841.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, motion by Virginia, second by Nick. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Moore,
Aye.
Maher,
Aye.
Casada,
Aye.
Herbold,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
carried.
Okay.
Can you remind me, Josiah, where the stripes are coming into? Markings, where are they?
Where are they coming into?
Mhm.
I don't understand. Sorry.
We're repainting worn ones,
Yes.
I presume?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
I don't.
Okay.
Any questions?
You
Okay.
can
Yep.
leave when you're,
I'll get this together. Chris, I'll leave you the resolution and the agreement for that, and you can email it to me.
okay. Thanks, Josiah. We'll continue with the mayor's report. I mean, it's written out, but the Swisher Tract update, I just want to say to the audience that the city closed on the Swisher Tract property on Thursday, July 26th, here at the community center. And we had a reception afterwards. And so that was a wonderful thing that happened with the city here. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is the Herald plate stopped over at my house, and he's going to continue as the crossing guard at Horn School. And I also want to put this during announcements, but I want to say it now because announcements is later. But the community events committee for the city is having a family fall festival on Sunday, October 7th, from 4 to 7 at Tower Court Park. They're going to do fall activities. I'll just name a few. They're going to have a tractor there with American Gothic paintings so kids can put their heads in, and there'll be a lot of photo opportunities. And then there's going to be, you can bring your dog, and there's going to be pictures with your dog. We're going to have a special set up for that. And then we'll have a bouncy house, and we'll have some other events. And we're going to grill hot dogs and hamburgers and have macaroni and cheese and dessert bars. And it's all going to be furnished, and the plates and everything. And so you just bring your chairs, your kids, your dogs, your everybody, all the dog people. It'll be a great event. Hopefully the weather will be good. We're thinking if rain date will come over here to the community center because we're going to have lots of good food. It'll be a fun event. And we'll have flyers that we pass out about it. And so I just want you to have that on your calendars. We'll talk more about it next month. And I've been working with Lisa Moore with the resident guide, and actually she's done the major part of the work, and so she passed it out. And Lisa, do you want to go through some of the resident guide? Just talk a little bit about it.
I think I said pretty much everything in my report. We tried to make it as short as we could to be a quick read, but as useful as we could make it. And I thanked you for working with me, Mayor Fromm, but I didn't mention that Virginia Miller is the one that did the previous version, and she gave me her file to work from. So we've got it down to about 5 pages. So look it over if you have any comments.
And so we're waiting to see if there's any additional comments, because then we can format it.
I'm guessing it'll just be
5 pages.
stapled sheets,
Yeah.
because it won't
Or a fold.
do
We're going to look it
quite
over.
for a booklet unless
You're very talented, so I know we'll come up something good. And we'd like to pass it out before September 1st is our goal.
Okay.
To all the homes. We're going to hand deliver it. And,
So that's a pretty quick deadline. Okay, good.
so thank you, Lisa. If you didn't spearhead this, I wouldn't have gotten it done so
Someone else will.
quickly. she kept poking me, so I would work on it. Thank you. The other thing is, council needs to appoint a representative to the One University Place Homeowners Association. They moved up when their first meeting's going to be, and it's Thursday on the 23rd of August at 7 o'clock. And Dottie called me and said she was interested in being appointed to that position. I don't know if other people are interested.
The reason that I'm especially interested is in addition to the fact that we are part owners. I was an owner of a condominium for 9 years and participated in a homeowners committee kind of thing. So I've had a baptism by fire with the organizational focus. So I think I would probably be pretty astute about what's going on. I think
Okay.
I would be.
Is
a
anyone else
help.
interested?
I wouldn't mind joining just from a pure financial perspective, because it is our commitment to making payments on this property and participating with this property. So I don't mind if it's done by committee, and that seems to be pretty typical of how we're doing things anyway. Just from a pure financial perspective. Of course, all material matters would have to come back to this council for decision-making. I don't think Dottie or whomever else or myself would be afforded the opportunity to make decisions right then and there with that committee. That's outside of the scope of our assigned duties.
So a motion for approval of Dottie?
Oh, okay.
Need a
So
motion?
you move to approve Dottie,
I'll second.
and second by Lisa. Just one representative, is that what you're saying?
That's what they asked us for, right?
Okay. It can be one. She told me it can be one. It's one vote. It depends on the vote. They're going to discuss it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, say no. Okay, motion carried. Dottie,
When is the meeting?
it's Thursday night, right here at 7 p.m.
This week?
This week, the 23rd.
That was 5:30.
They just told us about it about 2 weeks ago. And the other thing is, I talked to Teresa Morrow, she's the manager.
Right.
And I've been contacting the University Club and other businesses. I'm going to contact Finkbine, but I told her that the representative would also talk about having trash cans towards Melrose. That would help with a lot of the trash, especially the Iowa State game and the Big Ten games.
Because we don't have a trash policy here, do we?
Well, she thought it was a good idea,
Yeah.
that it would help, because I said the
yeah.
council's talked about this several
Like
months
Iowa
ago.
City does.
And I said I'm working with other businesses, and I just want to give you a heads up that this council's interested in extra trash containers, and I know you keep this facility very clean, like Disney World, no. And so she was very receptive about it, but, you'll have to discuss it with the,
Is she with
or-
a realtor? Who's she with?
her and her husband are realtors, or they were, right? Teresa Morrow
Yeah, I
and,
think she's with,
She's with a
yeah, I
somebody.
think she's with Blanket McCune.
Blanket McCune.
oh,
she's an
Blanket
owner.
McCune.
Okay, I thought it
I
was.
think his name is
yeah.
Wes, and Teresa.
Can I jump in here a second? I have on the calendar that the North Building Association meeting is tomorrow, 5:30 to 7,
It is.
and then the South Building is 5:30 to 7, so I just want to make
Oh,
sure.
it's 5:30 to 7?
That's what I had from Teresa, so if
Oh,
that's changed,
okay.
I need to
No, I
update
don't
it.
know that.
So Thursday?
Okay, but you're going to the Thursday meeting. This is the South
Yeah,
Building.
At 5:30, you said?
Well,
Right.
she said it's 5:30
That's
now.
what I can double check with
Yeah.
Teresa, but that's what she had given me, and I put
Okay.
on the
I just
the calendar,
need
which
to
I
know.
have up there.
Okay,
I'll verify for you, Dottie.
okay.
Okay, thank you. I told her 7, and she didn't,
That's okay. We'll get we'll get
say
worked
it,
out.
but yeah. But we were talking about a lot of things. Thank you, Dottie. Okay, so I think that's everything. So we'll go to legal report. You had quite the legal report,
Okay.
so we better get started.
All
Thank
right.
you, Steve.
You bet. I don't have too much to cover that won't come up on the agenda in another format. But I'm happy to answer questions. The things that I would like some direction on, as I indicated in the report, are what I outlined as the possible proposal for how the council might handle the Olive Court homes, and I had a memorandum that I attached to my report along those lines. And then the second one, it would be, I outlined kind of a neighborhood stabilization program or project that the council might want to consider by way of accessing the TIF dollars from the OUP project that would otherwise be available. So like I said, I kind of tried to sketch out something in an outline fashion on both those issues. I guess I would like some direction from the council on those issues or other issues that it would like, if it would like me to proceed to really flesh some of those things out. Nothing is before you this evening for a vote, but I would like some direction on those two things.
I think you should take steps to access that $25,000 this year for a neighborhood stabilization affordable housing project yet to be determined.
I was hoping we would stay away from that because it's going to take away from schools, which are currently drawing from that amount. City still comes out with some portion, and we're not too far away from receipts from the hotel motel tax. And so one of my big concerns is that we're essentially excluding our schools from receiving additional funds that are presently right now, they have access to. Kirkwood College is impacted, your emergency services are impacted, and a host of other public services are impacted. And so TIF already diverts money away from these programs, and I think it's at a time when we really don't even have a foundational setup for this thing called revitalization or neighborhood stabilization. I don't think we should be in a rush until later to flesh it out. And not only later, but at a later point in time when you have more funds that are bigger and more significant. 'Cause
But a
right
lot of
now-
those funds are already dedicated, are going to need to be dedicated to things like road repair and stuff, whereas
Yeah,
we
and
have
that's
like
fine.
a
It'll
really
be in
dedicated
larger
cash flow
amounts.
source for affordable housing right here. I think we should go for it.
So I just don't think it's a big enough chunk of money to justify drawing, keeping away money from our school districts and our emergency services. and
I think the
county level.
easiest way to use it would be as a down payment assistance for converting rental houses into owner-occupied houses, which I think would be highly beneficial to. our
See,
neighborhood.
I would like to see what the comprehensive plan turns up, because we have major issues just in stabilizing the integrity of the community with streets and sidewalks and lighting, which is really core.
Neighborhood stabilization does not mean infrastructure. It means trying to reduce turnover of households so that we have more stable occupancy of households.
Well,
just by
but
the way.
it's a different diversion of funding that I think until we have a better global picture of where we're going, I think we need to postpone it. I think it's premature.
Because we don't know how the market is going to operate. Well, a couple of things that I have concerns over are your market performance. We said that we have a new rental program that we're going to revisit a year later. We don't have any information on how that's looking to justify any position that we may or may not be taking. I'm interested in making sure that we make solid, long-term strategic decisions, not short-term, check off the box, did this. I'm not interested in that. I think we need solid information collected, solid information that makes us do a really healthy program that's a success from the start and not a wobbly effort that,
Okay.
it's piecemeal.
Can we
kinda
move
like
on to
the
get
street
council
sweeping that we've been
consensus?
doing. So I think it's inconsequential, the amount of money involved. That's not a whole lot of money. Maybe it's not a whole lot of money. Who's it gonna help? One house?
One
Household?
house could be helpful.
One
But-
household? I think we need to focus on improving Olive Court and Lemur. Those are like ground zero. They're getting impacted.
I mean, so, I
from
mean,
the
what the
hotel.
trade-off here is that we try to convert one rental house into an owner-occupied house with the funding each year, or we have $5,000 to do street repairs. I mean, I would rather try to convert housing into owner-occupied, but that's my position. We need consensus on the council on it.
I would like to try to do that also.
Well,
Yeah, I'm fine trying that also.
I think you need a substantial amount of money if you're going to try to do anything decent to any of those houses because they are in terrible condition. And 5,000, 30,000 isn't going to touch anything. 50 won't touch it.
Yeah, so you just have to be really choosy about which house you allow into the program, and you don't allow a house that's in terrible condition.
Well, if
into
you
the
did the
program.
one on the west side, you know.
Yeah,
that
yeah, you wouldn't ever want to.
Maybe 50 would do that, but certainly not the one on the east side.
Absolutely.
In fact, it might be better
So
torn.
then again, where's your revitalization philosophy? You're basically saying you're going to leave the east side as is, and Lisa Moore has had very unkind words to say.
No,
about
no,
it.
those
She's
houses
not.
are being
She's
handled
talking-
under a completely separate, or would be handled under a completely
I don't-
separate
I-
idea. This
you know
isn't
what?
the
I'd
same
like
thing
to
at
have-
all. So, Steve, do you have the direction you need?
No, actually, I don't have enough information, because it appears that there's undercurrents of meetings and informations that have taken place with legal that I'm just jumping into right now. So who has more information on the shape and direction of this?
Of the Olive Court houses?
Are we
It's in the
talking about
legal
all the
report.
houses, or are we talking about?
No, we're not talking about Olive Court's houses right here.
Okay, so that's, all right. So for the 5,000, what's the for the 5%, the direction is to take away money.
For the
from school
25,000, we
districts.
need to take action right now if we're going to get that money. And so we're saying, go ahead, take the action, and then we'll start figuring out the details of what we're going to do with the money.
I think that's that's treating us for really short, on the short side. I'd rather get a lot of cash from the hotel, exactly as it was intended, and revitalize with a healthier program that way.
Okay, well,
Otherwise, this is gonna be a piecemeal, small effort.
So two things I can report
just start
back.
small.
Excuse me. Two things I can report back to you on, but I have to look into them, and I won't be able to do it while we're sitting here. One, I need to look at there's certain taxing jurisdictions that are that aren't impacted by a rebate TIF, and schools are always one that comes up, and it depends. There's different levies that schools have, so I can inform you about that. But then the other thing is, I think if the city establishes an economic development project, I think it can bank funds that it has to borrow and allocate, as I described in my memo. But I don't think it has to spend those funds immediately. So if there's a concern that there's not enough money generated in a particular year to make a big enough difference, or to have a big enough program, I think the city is able to bank some of those funds until it has enough. But I'll double check on that and let you know.
Could we like bank it or escrow it for any developmental purpose? I mean, you wouldn't have to identify it per se, would you?
You do have to identify it, because otherwise you can't access the TIF. You've got to certify something in terms of a project that you're doing.
A
All right,
specific, okay.
You know, now that we're talking about this, you want it for affordable housing, Virginia.
Mhm.
I have a concern that, you know, as policymakers here, that's really the reason why we're sitting on these chairs, is to make policy, not to do administrative, you know, street sweeping. I've picked up trash cans and things like that out of a necessity, not because it should be an assignment for a counselor. But the bottom line is that I'm concerned that the focus of this direction to the council is all about creating affordable housing, yet we aren't talking as a council body, the maintenance of affordable housing for some of our residents. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about some of the residents.
Let's save
who are
that
here.
discussion for another
No,
time.
I'm not saving it. I'm
It's-
talking about it now, because we're talking about actions to direct the city attorney as to what to label and what to designate and what to set up the intent for those dollars. And I think the people who are struggling in University Heights, who are getting tax bill after tax bill increases in their property, deserve to have a council or a counselor, or some counselors, look after them. So I'm really hesitating to direct the city attorney that the intent of asking for this 5% increase to come in directly to the city is strictly because of affordable housing. I'd like to be a lot more open-minded about affordable housing. We have right now some residents who are struggling to determine whether they're going to stay here another year or not, or move to a cheaper side of town or away from town, because it's getting more and more expensive to live in University Heights. So, I think we owe them a duty.
Do you have a proposal that you're,
well,
is there an
let's-
idea here that you're
well,
trying to?
That's why I'm saying, why are we in a rush tonight?
Because
make a
we
decision?
have a deadline of December 1st, or we don't
That's
get to
right.
do
What day
this.
is
So
today? It
let's
is the
go ahead
21st of
and,
August.
I mean, I'm sorry,
The
we need
city
to move
attorney
on.
just released this information. It's not enough time for a healthy discussion for counselors who care more broadly about creating
We've all
and
known this was
maintaining-
coming for,
and maintaining housing.
okay.
Well, let's defer any further discussion till next month when Steve has more time to
That is not the consensus we came to.
research.
Why don't we just put it in a form of a motion, so then we'll know the consensus of what Steve's direction, what is,
So what I said was, do you want, in my legal report, I'll just pull
yeah,
it
you
up
called it
here.
neighborhood stabilization, I believe.
I did.
But
So-
it's being clarified that it's affordable housing at this time.
I would think that we would want to call it both, but
Neighborhood,
my preference.
neighborhood revitalization.
And if
No,
we're
the
calling
way
it
it's
affordable housing, I want
worded
to
in the
know
legal
what are
report.
we calling affordable housing? Because you have many names for affordable housing, and some of them can be fake affordable housing or true affordable housing, or all sorts of things can come into play. And-
There are
and I-
lots of different levels.
Yeah, there's lots of different levels.
So the question, as I sort of tried to outline it in my legal report, was whether the council desired that I move forward with some sort of a project or program along the lines of neighborhood stabilization, affordable housing, to bring back to you that you can take a look at with this deadline of later in the fall in mind.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Is there a abstain?
Abstaining. I don't have enough information on this.
Okay,
I would like to distinguish between stabilization and affordable housing, if that could be an amendment.
I think they included both.
Well, but I don't want them lumped together, is what I'm saying. I think they are very different. And
I
in
think they're dual
Steve's
goals. I don't
reply,
think they're different.
I'd like them distinguished, that's all.
I think you'll be able to, as details,
You can have stabilization without affordable housing.
true. I think so. I think as the details are
Yeah.
discussed, you'll be able to pick and choose what you
Okay, see,
want
that's what
as a
I'm saying.
council.
The details aren't available, so why are we voting? Why don't you get your details fleshed out with general direction for this council body to vote in September?
Well,
Okay, we're done with this discussion and we
Okay.
voted, so let's go on.
I'm sorry, I don't know what Dottie's vote is.
I voted yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the other issue that I asked for some direction on in my legal report was the Olive Court homes, and as I said, there was an outline that I had a separate attachment to my report that sketched out some possibilities, and I guess broadly my question is if you want me to provide some detail and work on something along those lines, if you have specific direction or general direction about, you like this or you don't like that, I guess I would like some direction so I can do what you want.
My direction is, I like the concept that I think the city should dispose of these homes. I think we don't have the time to wait to see what the comprehensive plan may or may not authorize in terms of rezoning to redevelop some or any of that part of town. But I think what's missing in this plan, Steve, and I would like to see in the next draft, is what happens to the proceeds of the sales. I think this council body needs to be very specific about, you sell a home, you get money, what are you going to do with that money? Where's it going to go? That I would be supportive of a proposal that has a beginning, a middle, and an end with respect to with respect to the transfer of the money. You have two houses. They're in an ideal location. We're in a very desirable, up-and-coming part of Johnson County that's worth cash and money. And what are we going to do with that money? That's what I want to see. I want to see what we're going to do. And I don't want vague concepts. I want articulated, specific concepps, such as maybe offering rebates to our residents to solarize their homes or to do geothermal. Maybe some of our residents want to fix their driveways with some concrete that's more permeable so that it's able to absorb water, so we're more environmentally friendly and more conscientious of our resources. All sorts of ideas as embedded in that proposal. I think I would have a hard time voting in support of something that is broad and vague and leaves it up to any resolution that, you know, some people remember about and some people don't.
When you say dispose of homes, do you mean sell as is?
I don't mind if, you know, sell as is or sell with improvements. At the end of the day, you're going to get cash somehow. And I want to know and have some assurances in the proposal from the city attorney where that cash is going to go. Because right now, all we're saying is, let's get rid of these two assets. And I want to know where we're going to reinvest them. And I also think
Steve,
that
I would
that's-
motion that we go ahead with developing this RFP and have a draft of an RFP ready for September meeting.
Second.
I couldn't hear you, Virginia.
Oh, I'm sorry. I motion that Steve move forward with fleshing out the details of an RFP and have that ready for review at the September meeting.
Is it for the selling of the homes as is, or is it for fixing up the homes?
No, it's what's already
He gave us several scenarios. I just want to know which one.
under
There's several. I didn't
Number
really didn't
3.
hear.
Number Roman numeral 3, right?
outlines it pretty specifically.
Yeah.
For the benefit of the public, what's number 3?
I
Thank you.
Rule number
Now
3
we can
says we're
hear.
going to specify some specific amenities and improvements for each house that are mostly exterior so that the effect for the neighborhood is greatly improved. And then the interior improvements would be up to the contractor. That they would make a proposal for what they're going to do for the interior improvements, and that proposal would be chosen by committee.
So, and then there's a 24 next, correct? As I
I'd like to modify number 3 then, because while I appreciate that this work is being done by committee, I think all of this council is responsible for approving what those improvements are.
Yeah, so the committee would be that approves or that picks selects, their favorite proposal is listed in Roman numeral 4, and then that then comes to council as a recommendation that council can adopt or reject. And they can pick a different person if they want, but at least they'll have a recommendation from a review committee.
so that's a motion and a second for that. And does everyone understand it?
No,
Okay.
I'm
No?
sorry, who was the
Dottie
second?
said no.
I didn't. What
Nick.
is it finally?
Thank you.
Which part?
What is
the motion?
proposal? Yes.
The proposal is the attachment to Steve's legal report. Did you read that?
It's up there, Dottie.
In terms of
takes
specific
a while.
improvements.
We put
Yeah.
together an RFP for contractors to make some specific improvements to the two houses. Then they say how much money they're going to pay the city for the two houses, and they detail exactly what other improvements they're going to do. And then the contractor would sell the houses, so they
I
would
know,
have
but
their own
my-
financial
okay,
incentive.
my concern is so you're giving the bidder or the reviewer carte blanche to decide what needs to be done?
Yeah, and then they submit proposals, and a review committee picks a
Without
proposal.
any direction or guidelines, because see, I don't want
There's guidelines.
anybody.
No, there are guidelines, but it's mostly exterior work so that the neighborhood
Well,
is
yeah,
improved.
but the general
And then
application
for
of
the
all the
interior
houses
improvements
in the
is at
neighborhood.
the,
But I mean, I think we're out of our water depth if we're trying to tell anybody exactly what these houses need. because they are in
Exactly.
horrible, I mean, they're in,
Not a code compliance.
they are way
That's
out
why
of,
Habitat was going to invest $250,000 because
Yeah.
it cost about that much to bring them in. Plus, they were going to pay the city about $100K for both houses, and then also they were going to share revenue. So that's $350,000 in those two properties alone. So my question is, what are we looking at for an estimated sale price? Who's going to help the city?
That's what we would
establish that?
find out through the RFP process. I mean, I can't tell you what that's
Well,
going to.
okay, so let's talk about the
We don't-
RFP,
yeah,
because I don't want these houses going for $1. But they could, conceivably, you could have somebody with $1.
Have you read the proposal?
I've read the proposal, and
Okay.
it's broad. So my question is, let's tighten it up right now by also saying that we should have a reserve on that RFP. So I'd like for Steve to develop language indicating to the public who wants to bid for these houses via the RFP process that there is a reserve. So they shouldn't show up, maybe that reserve.
So a
should-
minimum amount is what you want?
Yeah, minimum
Okay.
amount, but we shouldn't disclose what our minimum amount is. We should keep it, that's the purpose of a reserve when you're doing an
But we don't
auction.
have to accept, I mean, right off the bat, if we don't like what comes back, we reject it. We don't have to pick, we're
Well,
not
we shouldn't be
obligated to
nickeled
pick
and
a.
dimed is what that reserve does to protect the city. It protects the city from getting nickeled and dimed.
I mean,
Sure,
the
put a
council
reserve in.
votes at the end,
Mm-hmm.
so they might refuse all of them, is my understanding.
They could, I
Fine
read
with it
that they
as
have.
is.
We're going to get proposals, they're going to tell us, we review them, we decide if we accept one.
are we capable and competent to make those decisions?
I seriously doubt that we have.
Well, the people who are providing the proposals are going to have experience in this field, and I think the guidance in this attachment strikes a nice balance between giving them the direction we need without over micromanaging people who do this for their job.
Have you ever been involved in this kind of thing, Nick? This kind of renovation?
Renovations
Or
I mean,
building?
I've renovated my own house.
Because
Yeah.
it is a fool's paradise unless you're really wise and smart and knowledgeable. You can
Yeah, which is why
easily
we're
be
not
conned.
going to handle the renovations ourselves.
I don't think we should be in the business of building, frankly.
What?
Well, they're
Yeah.
They're gonna have
owned the
interested
home the whole time. I mean, our
contractors
exposure here is
make the
really
proposal.
minimal. So anyway, Steve, do you have the direction you need at this point? Can we move on?
Well, let's vote now.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 What we're voting on, just so we can be clear, please. What's the motion?
Oh, me? Sorry. I thought it was Virginia.
Well,
The-
she's done it twice, so let her have a break.
Basically, the direction is to have Steve move with an RFP for option number 3 with some specific improvements being included in that RFP. Would that be correct?
And add a reserve.
Well, they're outlined in the
Thank you.
in the legal report.
Okay.
No, Virginia agrees with that. Or at least I think that's the proper way, is to do a reserve. If not, we're going to be the same way we were with the Swisher Trust.
You know what? I'm sorry. It's just not
They
necessary.
should have had a reserve on the Swisher Trust, and they wouldn't have gotten the money that they did. They probably would
Yeah,
have done
but
better.
we're not auctioning the property off.
Well,
This
We're
is
not required to accept one of these offers.
But
It
we
says that.
we shouldn't set ourselves
So
up
there is
for-
a motion pending.
Yeah, motion stands as is.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
with reserve, right?
No, it's not been amended.
Opposed?
Did you
Aye.
catch that vote first?
Do you say aye?
I will go aye and I'll.
Aye, okay. And Dottie? Aye.
I'll just
Okay.
raise the nickel and diming later
It's
on.
unanimous. Okay, very good. Now you have directions, Steve.
I do, and I don't have other comments about my report. Some things come up in the agenda unless you have questions about some
Steve, I
things.
have a couple of questions for you, Steve. Where are you building your research from? What tools or resources are you looking into as you are drafting these proposals and recommendations on revitalization and how to handle the disposition of these properties?
I've looked at a lot of different things. I don't think I can tick them off for you. We've certainly looked at things in Iowa City and Coralville, but there have been a number of other communities and jurisdictions. There's also been some private entities like the Housing Fellowship, Habitat, I guess some different sources like that. Some-
I would move to I have a motion to move on to the next agenda item.
I'll second that.
What?
Okay.
You would do what?
I'd like to move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, there's a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna,
I'm
and
sorry,
are you voting?
I don't think it's what's it a motion for? I think Steve was just responding.
Yeah, Steve was just responding, so what's?
Okay,
That's
so,
why I said to Herbold, what's going on?
so you say aye?
I say aye to Steve's.
Okay,
I'm so
Jeez.
confused right now.
okay.
Failed.
So do you
Or
know
have
how
any-
they voted?
No, I don't.
I'm not sure how they voted either. How would you like to vote on that?
I'm gonna say no.
No, okay.
If stopping the stream of public discussion is what's the motion.
Okay, and Dottie, how do you vote?
I'm going, I don't like
Is that a yes or a no?
it depends upon what the options are at the time he brings his report back, because we may not be.
Well, we're moving on to the next agenda item, is what the vote is. Is that yes?
I thought we had already moved.
No?
Oh,
We continue.
So I guess
to me, it
that's a
seemed like a
yes.
private conversation that is making these meetings so
Okay.
late. So I was ready to move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, so we'll go, okay, any
was that an
questions for
abstain?
Steve? We'll go on to city clerk report, and you had quite a long report.
I did.
Let's go.
I'm
Let's go home.
Okay, so I have it up there on the screen. I'm not going to go over each point that I have there. There were quite a few items that I'm hoping you all read prior to the meeting. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to bring up the CPA list and the responses for the city audit, and city examination. And let me just move that a little bit there. So as you probably remember, we had 10 firms that I was directed to send RFPs to, which I did. They were given over 3 weeks to respond back, and the due date was August 17th at 5 p.m. I received 3 responses, 2 of them with proposals, and 3 of them with proposals, 1 that stated they could not take on additional work. The one that could not take on additional work is Fowler Kinchlow, if I'm saying that appropriately, and I'm going to move this so everyone can see the rest of it. We had Hogan Hansen, Kronlage and Olson, and O'Connor and Brooks. The amounts are listed there. The
And so
utilities
does
are
there-
They're listed there as well.
Thanks for doing that, Chris.
Is there a
So
motion?
can I motion that we choose Kronlage and Olson for the audit?
Kronlage and Olson, okay. That's a motion by Virginia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sylvia. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Is that everyone?
You got everybody's vote. Okay, very good.
All right, I will contact everyone and get this going. Thank you. Any other questions for me? Otherwise,
Yeah, Steve has to add one thing.
I'm sorry. If you all didn't have a chance to read the Press Citizen over the weekend, where this, and I don't mean to, if you were going to
No.
address this, there's a university-sized police officer pulls over a driver for speeding. This guy on a bicycle fakes this photo, puts himself in the foreground with the police car in the back, and then puts on social media that he was pulled over for speeding on his bicycle by a university-sized police officer. I haven't talked to Chief Peterson about how he found out about it fast enough to get the dash cam from the squad car, put it on social media, and write a note about it. But it was
That was cool.
just a tremendous, tremendous and quick response. I thought it was so awesome. I wanted to mention it.
And of course,
That's all.
the press would print anything having to do with University Heights and police.
Well, luckily Nate was there to, set the story straight and put a real good face on the community and on the department, in my mind.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, treasurer's report. Lori, did you have any more bills since you, okay, so All the bills are before you that she sent. Or is there any objection to paying the bills? Hearing none, the bills will be paid by unanimous consent. Any questions for Lori at all? Okay, we'll go down to building and zoning, and we did the first agenda item, and then did you want to discuss leaf
Yeah,
vacuuming?
let's do
or
leaf vacuuming first. So Steve Smith from Johnson County Refuse does not want to do leaf vacuuming anymore. He's getting rid of the equipment. He's getting out of the leaf vacuuming biz. Thankfully, he's still going to provide us with trash service. So we reached out to, I think, 7 companies to request quotes on providing leaf vacuuming. I also reached out to nearly every other city in Johnson County to see if, for instance, Iowa City or Coralville would like to provide services for us, or to see if there's any other small towns that were in the same predicament as us, and that didn't turn up anything useful. Quality Care and Turf Masters were the 2 that came back with quotes, and Quality Care is the lowest, and it's also very, very close to what we were paying for Johnson County Refuse. So I would move that we move forward with Quality Care for this year
Second.
and get them scheduled and get the leaf vacuuming dates set. And I did talk to Turf Masters too to tell them that they were not the lowest price, and they do want to provide a quote again next year, and they're very interested in being more competitive next year. So we'll see what happens with that.
Okay, so there was a motion by,
Virginia, second by Sylvia.
a second by Sylvia. Okay, Virginia and Sylvia. Okay, any discussion?
Can you make sure that the dates selected are checked out with Mark Vitosh? When I was doing leaf collecting, I always reached out to the DNR to get their anticipated dates of leaf dropping, which I thought would be valuable, but that never persuaded Johnson County Refuse to give us better dates. So I'm glad that we now
I'll
have
try. It
more
really
control.
varies based on like the moisture as you get towards the end of the year, so it can be
Mhm.
hard to predict that far in advance. And we have to set these dates by August 31st. So I don't know.
Why August 31st with whom? Is that what part of the contract says?
And
Oh,
we
boy.
need to get it into the resident guide.
Schedule, resident guide.
Can we make a note that we'll revisit the?
I'm gonna try to set them for later than they were last year. They were much too. I think the first one was in the middle of October,
Yeah,
or
well, that's-
which is
Johnson
way too
County
early.
told us- Yeah.
I wouldn't probably try to schedule the first one. And okay, well, the other thing is that we've always really run into trouble with scheduling them too late because Steve's got to switch his equipment over, and so I'll try to get them scheduled for later.
But this is different, so how different is Turf Masters? Are they gonna be also doing that switch with the snow?
You mean Quality Care?
Quality Care? Mm-hmm.
I'll find out.
Because
I mean, we specified in the RFP
getting
with
later
it.
dates would be fabulous.
Mhm.
Following Steve's schedule, I just don't think is for the greater good of the community.
So then we have
Right.
consideration of Grandview Court.
Yep. The
We didn't have a vote, did we?
oh,
I don't think so.
Oh, we didn't. We had a first and a second. I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carried unanimously. I'm sorry. You wanted to continue?
yeah. So second up, Grandview is having a problem with their recycling. They have 50% trash, 50% recycling containers now in their enclosed trash receptacles, and that doesn't provide them with enough trash room. The trash is overflowing. It's ending up in the recycling, which causes a lot of problems. So they proposed a fix to this. They would like to place 3 recycling receptacles basically next to where the trash areas are, using their own parking spaces to put them in for now to try this out and see if it works. I sent out in my report pictures of it and a map of where they would want to go. And so the trick here is that the PUD for Grandview says that all of their trash has to be in enclosed or areas that match the exterior of the building. And so my proposal here is we let them place these unenclosed for 6 months, see how it goes, see if it solves their problems, see if a bunch of people complain about what they look like or not. And after 6 months, if it is successful, we allow them to update their PUD agreement to include these recycling containers. And if it's not successful, they find another option.
What are they gonna do for game days? Because game days, they have a real serious problem with non-residents who don't live at Grandview dropping their game day tailgating trash.
I don't know. That sounds like a totally separate topic that I can follow up on for you.
Just ask them, especially if these containers are gonna be outside, because I think that's gonna impact the response that we get on with they're gonna do with them that, in an unenclosed area.
So are we committing right now to them not needing to have a fence around it, or are we just saying
We're
this is just a
saying
trial
we're gonna
run?
allow a 6-month test on it.
Okay. We're not committing to anything
It's
after
a
that.
6-month trial, correct? Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Virginia. Is there a second?
I
Okay, second by Sylvia.
already voted too.
Any further discussion? This is the 6-month trial for Grandview Recycling. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's carried unanimously.
All right, next up, I've got ordinance number 234, amending ordinance 191 about Parklands. Let me flip back to my report on this. I investigated the suggestion that we look at Austin, Texas's ordinances, and I didn't find anything there that was helpful or applicable to University Heights. So I'd recommend adopting the language as is. And just if you want to know what this would look like as it played out for either OUP or the Marriott Hotel, had these rules been in place for OUP, it would have yielded 1.14 acres of green space. Had it been in place for the Marriott, it would yield 1.18 acres of green space. I feel that's an appropriate amount. If we were to redevelop the entire city in buildings of that size, you'd end up with somewhere around 20 to 25% green space, which I think is what you would want for that type of density. So that's it. Motion adoption of ordinance 234.
234,
I
okay.
second.
Motion by Virginia and second by Sylvia. Further discussion, roll call vote.
Maher.
Aye.
Casada.
Aye.
Herbold.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, thank you. And we have ordinance number 233.
Yeah, sorry. So next up, ordinance 233. We also discussed this last month, and we wanted to talk with Steve a little bit more, pending the definition of a guest and why it was set at 15 days. And Steve, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all. It's kind of,
Sure.
yeah.
I'm happy to. So some of it's historical. Back when when the council adopted a rental housing code, there hadn't been anything before, and the one of the balances the council tried to make was to avoid people saying, well, this person's not a tenant because they don't pay me anything, and so one thing the ordinance did was it said if somebody who's not on the deed lives at your house, whether you charge them rent or whatever, they make your mortgage payment, we're not going to get into line drawing and sort of gamesmanship. That's a rental. But then we said, if somebody's truly just a guest, and the council kind of drew an arbitrary line at 15 days, right? And so, in listening to comments from the last meeting, thinking it over, looking at other provisions of the ordinance, I revised the proposed ordinance that's before you, 233, to make that guest duration the same as other parts of the ordinance that talks about 30 days. So it now says that somebody who stays without consideration, any payment, monetary exchange at all, can be there for 30 days and they're considered a guest. That doesn't trigger a rental. If somebody's there after 30 days, it would.
I have some concerns over the term guest being limited to 30 days. I'm aware of some international relatives, like a mom and a dad, that come and visit their U.S. resident children here in University Heights, and they have visa extensions that are far longer than 30, and they're just visiting. They're clearly returning.
We kind of had, that's my concern too, is that, like, what if my mother comes to visit for 2 months? But I guess the point is, as our ordinances stand right now, 15 days is the max that guests can stay, and after 15 days, they're supposed to leave. And this has never, ever, ever come up.
Well,
So I
I'd
don't
like to
really
see language.
know that it's going to come up anywhere in the future.
I do. I know some Canadians and some Koreans that would be impacted. So I'd like to know if council would object if we insert a clause 30 days or where there is a valid a visitor permit issued by the State Department for that duration of time?
No, because then you would have, that would open up the door to students, non-relatives.
Well, you can
I mean,
define to exclude certain classes,
So-
such as students.
I would,
I mean, most of these people are not coming in as students, they're coming in as relatives on a familiar visit.
so I guess all I can say is that is currently prohibited. We're changing things to actually be twice as lenient as
Right,
they
and
are
I'm just saying-
at existing.
I'm just saying be
But I don't
conscientious.
want to put off the prohibition of Airbnbs
No, I'm not saying
for
print it off. I'm
a
saying
special
that-
circumstance. So I would recommend adopting this as is, and if you want to take that issue up separately, that sounds fine.
Well, I am, I'm doing that now.
Pr-
And I'm
Bring
just
some
saying before
language
we
to the next
adopt-
meeting.
Well, we're adopting it now, or what are we doing? Is this the first reading?
It's the first reading.
First
Right.
reading.
So I wouldn't want to hold up the first reading if we can amend it now to have a general provision.
You can't amend it now, it would have to get republished, right?
Well, I need to draft, I need to know what you want me to draft, and then I think I need to draft it, but, so I don't know if we're gonna do it right here, but I'll certainly draft what you want.
If not, I'm willing to bring language for the next meeting, but that means we're going to have to restart and collapse first and second readings in September, followed by October with a third reading. And I wouldn't mind that outcome at all.
I kind of tend to want to get this going, and if there are people who have specific concerns, then I think we can start that as a separate project. It seems like we have the VRBO issue.
Violation.
I think I'd
They're
rather-
currently in violation.
Currently in violation. They were giving them twice as much time.
And
I'd
there
like
hasn't
to-
been a complaint.
And there's
Nothing's
not- I
been
mean,
done,
no one's going
and
after this in
if
any
you
sort of
start
way.
making all these little, except for this, you're going to find yourself in some sort of trouble.
Is there a motion right now?
Sorry.
There isn't yet.
Oh, I apologize. Motion adoption of ordinance 233.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Virginia, second by Lisa. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Casada,
Aye.
Herbold,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Maher,
Aye.
carried.
Okay,
Okay, I'll just quickly go through a couple of announcements from my report, which I hope everybody read. The rental permits all came in. We didn't have anybody who lost their rental permit due to not getting the paperwork on time, which is good. I don't want to be, having problems with little stuff like that. September 2nd is going to be a work day doing weeding and mulching of newly planted city street trees. So we're looking for volunteers on that if anybody's interested in helping out. The tree board is going to do trimming notices on September 5th, and so you need to keep your vegetation cleared back 8 feet over the sidewalk and 13 feet over the street, and 2 feet back from the sidewalk if there's shrubs. And then finally, this Friday, August 24th, Mark Vitosh is coming to do a preliminary assessment of our woodlands for quality. At 9 a.m., we're going to meet at the end of Sunset Street, so if anyone else wants to come along on that, you're welcome.
are there any questions for Virginia? Okay, thank you, Virginia. By the way, my husband wants to volunteer for the workday,
Oh, that'd be
September
fun.
2nd, so write him down. 10 to 12, and where do you meet?
My house.
Okay.
I'll get more details on that typed up.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to tell you, so I'm just going to tell you now. Okay, we go to the police chief report, and you sent that around?
I did. The only thing I just want to add I had a note in there about National Night Out. The day after, I believe, Lisa had contacted me and volunteered to go around and pick up all the signs that we had put out advertising or promoting that. So thank you to her and
thank you,
Dan
Lisa,
for doing that. And
You're welcome, Chief.
we appreciated it.
It was a great
Yeah,
night
it
out.
was a great turnout for that. And yeah.
And I really like seeing all the police together.
Mhm.
That was so nice.
Yep, all the full-time officers were there.
I
So
think
Yeah.
next year we have to make a stronger pitch for Crime Stoppers because it was a national night out, but we didn't put the Crime Stoppers logo and the purpose of it
right.
out. So I think we need to do that. That's as much my neglect as yours.
That was wonderful. It was a great event. Thank
Yep.
you.
So I don't have anything else to add unless there's any
Okay.
questions.
Any questions for Nate? Okay, Nick, you had several things.
Yeah, just I can be pretty brief. I'm not trying to repeat what's in my written report. We still have a lot of football game day parking spots open on Marietta.
Oh, you do?
So we're trying to sell the entire season. I would just want anybody, if they have any ideas on how to get the word out, I think that would be good for the city to be able to sell those. The UHPD is handling that, and I appreciate that.
Hey, Harold, when he stopped over today, he said he had more people that want parking places. So we got to,
put a Craigslist
I'll get that
ad.
word out to some people who park and they're already booked. And then they can say, contact the city. I know Stephanie Gahn, he said his neighbor. So that's a good idea to let people know.
Yeah, I think we're looking at, I don't know if there are issues with us doing that on Next Door Neighbor and Craigslist and some other, other.
I'll go for it.
items
I'll be
like
sure
that.
to pass that word down. Yeah.
People are just like knocking on doors, looking for parking.
Yeah,
But they're going to also think you can tailgate, and you can't.
right.
So that needs to be clear, because they have been going to our houses on Lemur asking for parking and tailgating.
Oh, right. Well, they do clarify that
Mhm.
when they contact the police, but that's a good thing to point out.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's a very good thing.
So how empty are we talking?
We still have, I ain't called, but we still have probably 55 of the spots available. We only sold a couple of the permits. We've had inquiries on them, but we'll see how it goes. There's
So
not
what's turning them away when they're inquiring?
the ones we've sold so far are actually out-of-state parents of football players who they don't have the intention to tailgate. They just want to come watch their son play football, and so they're just going to park there. It's easy for them to walk down. So that's the main interest we've had so far. We haven't had any interest locally, but that
Maybe
might
we
be.
should contact the athletic department specifically and tell them what's available.
Yeah, that's an option too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll pass that on to people I know.
Sounds good.
Park.
Then we have third consideration of ordinance number 228, amending the nuisance ordinance concerning removal of trash after game days, and the portable toilet ordinance concerning placement of toilets during football season. So number 71 and 136.
And that's a motion.
Yep, so moved for third consideration.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Virginia. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
1 second. Herbold?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Maher?
Aye.
Casada?
Aye.
Carried.
Lastly, looked at the ordinance relating to law enforcement activities that was brought up at last meeting. I don't plan to go through all my written comments, but just provided the feedback that that I had put together on that ordinance. I think that, Sylvia, if you want to follow through on any of those requests for information, that would be something that that I'd recommend putting into what we would propose to be a resolution going forward.
Well, I was pretty happy that overall your support of the concept. My only concern was the choice of tool that we're using here. As far as I'm concerned, I want my vision for UHPD is to have a well-paid, well-trained, professional police department that has the utmost professional and pristine contact with any member of our public. That means residents and non-residents. And I want to be able to stand by each and every ticket that we have, regardless of what manual is in place. My biggest concern, and I said this in my very first email to all counselors, the time to address this issue is now, because you are now the appointed new chief, and we've had change after change in the last 3 years. We've had 4 police chiefs. We had Ron Fort, we had Kent Stanley, we had Chris Lyons, and now yourself. And 3 of those manuals from the police departments have been replaced. One of them is actively getting finalized. So we have a lot of changes. And at the end of the day, I want our community to have a gold standard of performance. And that, the way I look at it is, if that's what the ordinance serves the purpose for, it's the purpose of an ordinance. It's not an aspirational want to have, would like to have, which is what a resolution is. And Iowa Code 362.2 clearly allows each and every one of you to have an opportunity to learn exactly why a resolution is not a good choice for espousing civil rights in your police performance conduct. So I don't have any strong objections, Nick, with respect to how we implement this rule. From the start, I've been pretty flexible, and the ordinance itself is super flexible. It doesn't say you have to use Excel or any other type of technology, but it does say collect data, share it, report it, put in place a process so that citizens can work with the chief. The chief is involved in this ordinance. As a matter of fact, you're going to have more community contact than you probably ever dreamed that this position would have. And it's just strictly to make sure that we have a gold standard of discharging our ticketing process. So I do want to let you know that I have, as part of the research I did, Dubuque is also another city that has an ordinance, a process for a non-biased policing, as well as Iowa City, which I was glad that you have some familiarity with. So I'm going to address these comments in a more structured manner at the next meeting, but I was glad to see that you were not opposing this. I think it's pretty straightforward. We want you and your staff to get trained. As part of being a well-equipped force, it means we have to budget for you guys. That's just the cost of having a police department, and a good one at that. And I've been a strong advocate for housing for our cops. I mean, that's something I'd like to see maybe discussion in, but, I don't think anybody really wants to be here too close to their home, their workplace. But regardless of that, my point is, I will be addressing these issues in September, and I hope that we can move on with formalizing it as an ordinance, because choosing a resolution is aspirational. And Porta-Potties are getting the status of an ordinance, so is the rental program, and a host of other important concepts that this council has. And resolutions just don't have that same authority and don't have that same priority as an ordinance. So, Nick, I'm going to give you 362.2, if you wouldn't mind looking at that, so that we can be on the same page with definitions.
I'll look at what you bring to the next meeting, but yeah, these are my recommendations.
Great. So I didn't think the $1,800 was a big expenditure. I mean, the department is already a big expenditure, but this is just the cost of having a well-trained, well-equipped workforce. So, all right. Thanks for your comments. And I did have a question now that we're talking about manuals. Our carrier, and this was in the clerk's report, I spoke to our carrier, and they're interested in having the city have signed forms that all of our officers have received and are aware of the city's manual. And do you know when your manual will be completed or finalized?
We're still working with Lexipol / whether we're going to have our own, what's the most cost-effective solution. The manual we still have in place is through Lexipol, what we paid for previously, that it's not just, the recommendation was that everybody sign off on the fact that they read the manual in its entirety as far as the insurance company is concerned. For us, it's a step above that. You have to acknowledge every single policy, not just that, yes, I looked at the whole thing entirely. It's every policy they go through, they have to acknowledge that they read it. Whether the officer or city employee does or not is on them. It's once they acknowledge it, they're responsible for its content. So yeah, we actually go a step above what she recommended.
Can I just ask a question?
Do you know when this will be completed, though? Because that's an outstanding item that I told our carrier I would look into.
Again, it's going to depend on what we can work out as far as the cost. If we can continue going forward with what we have as the most cost effective, then it's just going to be an amendment to what we have rather than restructuring.
Because the other thing that is available at your disposition, this is why I picked up the phone and I scheduled an appointment with our carrier, was we have resources with the ICAPs. And one of them is a model policy and procedures for a PD department. And they share it with their membership. And we are members. And I don't know if you'd have any interest in reviewing that. I'm hoping it's not going to be 800 pages like the one you have now. But the danger that he expressed to me is from a employment litigation perspective, our carrier cares about that, and we probably
Right.
should.
Absolutely.
And I know, how many folks do we have onboarded now? We have 5, right?
5, correct.
Right. So I think our risk profile just jumped a little high, and I'd like to close it out within, and I know, and I told Kyle, I said, you were stretched. You were working overtime, you only had 3 people, and you inherited a manual, so I just don't know what status we have right now administratively on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess I'll have to discuss that more with Steve. The manual we have now is, while it's large on a national scale, it is legally defensible because it's the company that wrote it is a nationwide company that does that for departments.
Benchmarking all over.
Yeah, they've had dozens of cases where they've been in litigation that they've defended in their policies, and they're based on best practice Supreme Court law within the state as well as nationally. So
I'm not at all questioning the reputation of the source. I just want a deadline when we can see this completed.
yeah, I guess I don't have an exact deadline. That depends if we're going to go with the insurance company's option of using their policies and completely rewriting it, that's going to take months.
Can you guys continue this conversation offline?
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's fine. So
Yeah.
that won't be a problem. All right, so anyhow, expect a response with this. And can I ask, well, actually, no, I don't need to ask. I already did. Okay, good.
So you're going to do your report now?
Yeah, let's move on to it. The farmer's market is actually working out a bit better. There are a lot more people are walking to it. It's pulling more people from a little bit more further out than University Heights. It's becoming quite the intra-neighborhood west side farmers market, and the vendors are very excited with the location. Certainly, there are days when there are fewer shoppers than others, but then there are days when there are quite a bit. And as a result of this, actually alerting the farmers market vendors that they could not be there on August 7th because of National Night Out, they asked why we were ending so soon in September. And I said, well, we did it middle of September last year, and that location worked out this way, and as I recall, this and this and this. So the group collectively has decided that they'd want to take a risk and go through asking this council for 3 more farmers market days. And those would be for the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th of September. So collectively, I said, do you still have produce at that time? And one of the vendors said she had pumpkins. So the point is, they want to take a business risk to have a farmer's market that far out. My question tonight, is there consensus in support of this?
Make a motion.
Hmm?
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion to extend the farmer's market under the same terms and conditions as granted for 2018, but for the following additional dates. September 11th, September 18th, and September 25th.
Second.
Okay, and there's a second by Virginia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
All right. I requested that we put formal resolution numbers to these policies. So let's start off with committee report with Resolution 1838, Prohibiting Discrimination in City Housing Practices. I sent an email to all of council explaining some background information for why this would be necessary, and I've provided additional information. You all received a revised version. And consistent with the information, yeah, I sent it out to Lisa and to all of council on
It's
Monday.
an email.
Mhm.
With-
Yeah. Yes, but initially, I had sent out an email with context information.
Right, not for this meeting, right?
Excuse, not for this, no, it'd be a repeat, so I'm not doing that. So in any event, there were a couple of questions that you had, Virginia, as to whether this whether the rental program as a whole would be picked up by this non-discrimination housing policy. And the answer is, it would only pick up the 2 houses the city has, because they are investments, they're assets, they're something that the city owns. So unless.
But we wouldn't have anything to do with who buys those houses. So
No.
how would that,
And so this policy, unlike an ordinance, is aspirational. That's the difference. And this policy is basically saying, we as a community, as a council, stand by the proposition that we won't support any discriminatory designs or effects in housing practices sponsored by the city. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
can we get a legal opinion on this?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
What do you want?
Legal opinion on Resolution 1838.
So as I shared with Sylvia, I think some of the phrases here are pretty vague. I think they could be challenged on that basis. Legal opinion, policy-wise, when you say that you, as a policy, don't want to do anything that creates, increases, reinforces, or perpetuates segregated housing patterns. You look at the racial makeup of the city, 2010 census, 94% white. Seems like if you do anything that perpetuates that, you're violating your policy. So I think I would be careful to look at exactly why, what's the motivation for the policy is, what you're trying to address, so that that you don't adopt something that you're going to run afoul of. So I think vetting it and thinking about it would probably be a good idea.
And the vetting was, in the revised draft that I provided all of you, it basically circles right back to the higher standard that was adopted on March 8th of 2013. So that standard is right now being considered to be undone at the federal level. So at the state level and at the municipal level, you can certainly do better than what the feds are doing. So that's where I think this community would support, and the councilors should reflect that we shouldn't have discriminatory patterns, regardless of the composition of 94%, whether it's 49% or whatnot. We ascribing to this, I just don't see the city running into any issues if it maintains practices that were well established in this March 8th, 2013 order.
So what are the practices?
Any housing practice, it shall meet
But-
conditions, terms, or privileges of sales or rentals or dwellings, or servicing or services or facilities in connection therewith. So it requires a very open and transparent process.
What's open and transparent about it? I mean, I don't see that. But, yeah. So I just, as long as you all know what your goal is and what you
Well,
mean by
the goal is
these.
to not exclude, not to unfairly burden any of the Iowa Code protected classes, and you probably are familiar with that since you provided legal opinion. I suppose you might want to tell us what those classes are. It's based on race, creed, sexual orientation,
Color.
color. We're not designing a city to exclude people who have any of these particular qualities. So
I just have a hard time, I mean, our property values run afoul of this practice, basically, and I don't know how are we supposed to handle that?
Our
I mean-
city doesn't have to, the point of our city is that our community should not, our government, it's government action. I'm just limiting to the government, because that's what we can control. Same question with Palomar, why can't we control people who are dressing with foul language?
Mhm.
Well, we can't, if it's not within our purview, we can't touch it. But programs that we set up need to be evenly distributed. That's it.
I just, how?
I don't
So,
know.
like, what's the
This-
max?
Is there a
cap for-
hypothetical of where this would be applicable? Like, what do you see the city potentially doing where this would make a difference?
Well, right now we have rentals, so have we investigated, I mean, obviously we inherited the tenants, the tenancies, right? But next time we have, suppose we kept the houses and we kept renting them, we probably want to have, a blind process or manner in which we are, screening our tenants. So if these tenants come in with a highly ethnic name, we probably don't want to place weight at all on the ethnic name. Can they pay the bill? Can they live there? Can they pay the bill? Can they meet the conditions and terms for leasing? And were they first in line or second or third, So it's pretty broad, same, fair. It's a level playing field application.
Is that not prohibited already?
It depends. It could change. This is why I'm saying we as a community need to do this, because at the federal level, it's already open for public comment to undo the standard.
Steve, would it be prohibited already to discriminate in the way that she provided that hypothetical?
I think it would be. The 2 points I think I would make are these. First of all, you just gave direction tonight to for me to come up with some fleshed out policy or plan for the Olive Court homes and for an affordable or a neighborhood stabilization type program. As far as I know, those are the only two actions that the council has proposed to take or has ever taken that I think would define or be considered the funding or subsidizing of a housing practice. And so I think what I would suggest that you do is, as you move down consideration of those two items, you can include a fair housing policy component of those in your program or in your documents. The thing that I think this fair housing policy, as it's written, does that goes beyond present protection is it talks about it doesn't just talk about discrimination. It talks about a disparate impact. It talks about predictable result. And so, if you have a neighborhood stabilization program that says, we're going to make funding available under these criteria for people who want to rehab their homes, and then the only people that are awarded any funding are of the same ethnic or racial makeup, because maybe that's who lives here or that's who applied, well, then that could be seen as perpetuating a segregated housing pattern. All right, so I just think you need to tread lightly.
I would take that suggestion that we include a fair housing policy in any specific actions that we take in the future, but 1838 as written is like a word salad that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, the attorney asked me to further define it. I mean, I try to keep it as basic as possible. The concept should be that we should not be promoting or implementing through taxpayer dollars any city government program that's discriminatory in effect or practice. That's the focus, effect or practice. And if we needed to do effect or practice, because that's just the 94% of the example that Steve Ballard gave you, then we better be supported by evidence, and it can't be speculative or hypothetical like we've been doing on a lot of major projects in the city. So I think it's a healthy standard to have that sets very strong protections for civil rights.
Well, isn't
Make
it,
sure that it's
it
not
should be
discriminatory.
broader than just city housing, because
Well, that's the only one we have. I mean, what else do we have? Streets,
Well,
sidewalks? I mean.
we have rental permits and
But we don't own
houses
them.
and houses that are reviewed, and that could very well be done in a discriminatory way.
That is already, that's a great suggestion, but I don't know that we have deputized the housing inspector to enforce Iowa housing law.
Well, if he's acting on behalf of the city, he would be acting with that power, I would think. I don't know. That's a Steve question. I don't think we should personally be in the housing, per se, business at all. So I'm biased in my thinking.
And I'm not, I have a different perspective. My perspective and direction is we as a community are entering opportunities that maybe we're not foreseeing right now, and our job is to be looking at the policy issues. Again, not doing the cleanup of the streets or reviewing that, but this is the policy issue that people elected all of us for. And this is where the bulk of our thought power should be focused. And so for me, this just is a no-brainer. As new resources are opening up for the city, we should commit to a minimum standard that we won't be discriminatory in effect or practice unless we have a justifiable, evidence-supported rationale to do so. And that may not necessarily be the case in 2019 or 2020. And we don't have to wait to lead the way with thought initiatives. I think we can do that well without having to wait for other cities, other states, or other agencies to do what we're doing at the local level.
Okay, Virginia expressed her opinion, and you expressed your opinion. You don't want to, and,
Can we vote?
No,
Okay.
actually, I want to know, how many of you want more time to think about this? Or to consult with the city?
well, nobody wants to
Make-
do it
make a
tonight,
motion.
is what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
except you.
No, well, consensus, right? So let's work on the consensus of coming back to this in September. Because I would really like to see a commitment to this.
Okay, so your next one is 235.
So 1838 tabled for September. And consideration of ordinance 235, I obtained a number for it, and I set it up as an ordinance with numbers. All of you received a red line, which means all the tracked changes. So I think I've already, at the risk of redundancy, but I think an issue right now would be whether you use,
We did actually not,
what?
it was not in the packet this month, right? Or is it? Okay.
I didn't see it either.
So there was information sent last time that was not set up as an ordinance.
Yeah.
Oh, the ordinance is missing. It should have been a combo. My apologies, okay. Well, that has to be tabled because it's not on there. So it's a red line just to set up with ordinance 235 with the expectations of additional comments or clarifications to be inputted for tracking. This is just my way of letting you all know where things are changing. Discussion of investment plan for hotel revenue collected. It's now 10:10. I'm going to table this for September.
Okay.
But I do want us to start thinking about this because that's going to impact our budget planning, which will be coming up in about October.
I actually don't want to table this.
Why not?
Discussion of an investment plan for hotel revenue collected from hotel tax.
Yeah.
What we need to get started on here is a comprehensive streets plan.
Well,
That's the
part-
investment
I
plan
think
that is
that's
needed.
what we all need to discuss and give priority.
Well, anyway,
So it'll be coming back in September. Consideration of resolution 1839 allocating the X Triangle Park 50,000 funding.
Well, she
That's what
wanted to continue to
Virginia
discuss
brought up.
it.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
mean, and you want to discuss the comprehensive street plan to set up.
yeah, I think revenue collected from hotel tax, I don't know what you mean by investment plan, but what we really need is a comprehensive streets plan, and we need to know exactly what work is needed on every single street. Lemur needs work, as we all are aware this week. Kozer needs work. Everything west of Sunset needs work. Gulfview's kind of a mess. I mean,
They
like,
all
the
need
list- They
work,
all
yes.
need work.
Yeah.
And
The whole
so
city
what
needs
we
work.
need is
Right.
for
At Ridgeview and Monroe.
And then,
Anyway.
yeah, Richmond, Oakcrest. I mean, you all saw my
Melrose.
email to
I don't
John.
need to
I mean,
list out
I-
every
I-
street.
I-
because
Mahaska.
there's
Craters.
13 of them.
I'm not dealing with potholes, I'm dealing with craters. So
Anyway, that would be my direction.
Good suggestions.
Come up, have Josiah and Dottie come up with a comprehensive streets
Yeah.
plan.
I think that'd be a good idea.
And,
So moved
So-
then.
So we'll move it
and-
I'll
to
second.
next month.
Okay,
discuss it next
so-
month.
No,
But I don't think we should eliminate just a street and sidewalks. We
Well,
also
it's-
have some other
let's
issues.
start there, and if there's more money 10
Yeah.
years down the line, then we can talk about
Yeah.
investments. But I think we're pretty well covered.
Yes.
Dottie, you agree? And
Yes, I do.
Nick,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second, though?
Mhm.
So we're going to.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes, I.
This is for the comprehensive street plan. So
Uh-huh.
that was, and say no
Mhm.
if there's opposed. Okay, so that's unanimous.
All right.
I think
To
that might be
start-
the most important vote that this council has ever taken.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
To start
that's-
with the comprehensive
somebody's
street
gotta throw
plan.
it out there for discussion, right?
And Camp Ralston would be happy with that, too.
Right. Actually, Ralston would probably be a better source to do it.
I think Josiah will.
And then
be-
we have 1839 is, you wanted to talk about the,
Allocating the X-Triangle Parks 50,000 funding budget from the Marriott developers to the Swisher Parkland Green Space Fund. Right now, those monies are suspended in limbo. There's no direction or allocation. So
All
I'm
right, first
motioning-
off, this was
No,
changed.
first off, I'm not done speaking,
Oh,
Virginia.
oh,
Keep
sorry.
eating.
Go
So
ahead.
first off, I'm motioning that we move this money to the Swisher Fund for two big reasons. Number one, we can't get decent funding unless we have money of our own committed to whatever goals it is that we're requesting proposals for. And number two, if we don't get funding, we need to draw down funds from somewhere. And Swisher Track is 11 acres worth of work, and we need money for that.
It has not been demonstrated that we need $100,000 for the Swisher Park.
well,
first off.
let's get a second on the motion first.
Is there a second? All right, so can I hear why you don't have a second? Actually, I wanna
Well,
hear you.
let's
No,
just
but
move
I
on.
need to make a point here. We don't have $50,000 coming from the hotel developers for park space this year. We have 20, right? And then 10 in the next 3 years. You two came up with a plan to get the whole 50 this year, but that's never come through the whole council. So we don't have 50,000 coming this year.
Oh,
We
yeah,
have
we-
20,000 coming this year,
Well, we can have 50,000 coming this year.
but we don't.
We can't.
We could if we
That's-
wanted to, but
Well,
we
it's
don't.
not a barrier.
At the par- at
If-
pre-
That's
if
at
the-
present.
If the council
Okay.
had the foresight.
Meanwhile, we
To
still
approve-
we need to make some changes to Triangle Park. We need to take down the bus shelter, and we need to put in a bench. Let's use some portion of that $20,000
Well,
to go
let-
ahead and take
let
care
me-
of those two worst problems at Triangle Park, and then see what it looks like and reevaluate how we
Well,
want to spend the rest
okay,
of that money.
I'd like to make a comment about the park. 20,000 won't even cover the shelter, so we do need to set aside more than that. But I have had,
20,000
un-
is the budget, so let's look at what we can do for 20,000.
we have
You can
more
have
available
50,000 for the
because,
budget.
I
because
don't want
Greg,
50,000 for the
Greg
budget.
and Jim
That's
have,
exactly it, Virginia. It's just you. You don't want it. And I think that's not a healthy approach. I think the other thing to do is to have this entire park just renovated, done, and over with, because that money was supposed to go to help
I
revitalize
can't
the
find
area.
one person in town that
Oh.
wants a $50,000 park.
I have had multiple
But we need a
calls
couple of things done there,
asking
so let's
what
get a
in
couple
the
of
heck
things done
happened.
cheaply and then find new ways to spend
So,
the money.
I'm sorry, Virginia, I do not
So
agree.
moved.
I'll second it.
What was the motion?
Hey, wait a minute.
Did you just agree to this motion? Perfect. Okay, so
No.
moved.
No, she said something
Come up with a
different.
plan to take down the existing shelter and put in a bench. Get costs on that. Let's get that done
It's
using this
20,000
year's Marriott money.
20,000 for the shelter.
We're not putting up a new shelter, we're putting in a bench.
We don't want a bench. If we're going to do this, we're going to follow the
That's my
vision.
motion.
No, I just want to say, Virginia, that we spent a year with the vision project.
Yeah, but the vision
And this-
project said we needed an overhaul on that park.
Uh-huh,
It did
and
not
the
dictate
picture
exactly
showed
what the overhaul was. That was what
Twice
the
the
plan stated.
cost of what I have managed
Yeah.
to get it
No,
down to.
Absolutely. You cut it by half. That's great. but
Yes,
it
and
needs
so we
be
need
cut
to
more.
clean up something in this dump so that we would have something that when people come in and drive by, it would be a positive, lovely,
It's
elegant
20,000. It's, the motion is 20,000
Motion
to
is
take
to
down, to
Spend this
investigate.
year's money on Triangle Park.
You can
and
take the
not make changes
bench and
to how the
stick it.
Marriott money is coming in.
And,
What are you
okay.
Sorry, that's a
about?
totally different motion than the previous
I
one.
have no idea what you guys are talking about.
So,
Can't hear
Sorry,
him.
my head
Do you have
hurts.
a motion?
No.
No.
It's not on the agenda. It's not a proper motion.
We're
You
not
can't
going,
expend taxpayer
All right.
dollars without a proper disclosure on your open meetings agenda minute.
a
If not, you can
bench.
be-
Can you imagine a bench?
Look, I just care about investing in this area.
Okay,
Complete ground zero, and it
I
should
propose that we table that for the next meeting too, because it's 10:20.
Let's take
Is
a
that, and you
resolution
said okay?
1839.
Okay, okay.
All right.
Okay, so it's tabled. So now we go to,
Consideration of resolution 18-40. This is for proposal for parkland and green space planning. I think the area of interest for you all, I'd like to get your comments or feedback on this because it mirrors the Johnson County Conservation Board's proposals, except for the scope of work. So I don't see how the scope of work would be a problem or a concern for many of you. So let's hear what you all have to say in discussion.
I think the scope of work, or at least the selection criteria, the first main criteria, I think needs to be the project's adherence to the bond language of preserving clean air, clean water,
To
and
what?
wildlife.
I can't hear you, Virginia.
The main selection criteria, like the biggest portion of the scoring, should be the proposed project's adherence to the bond language that authorized the purchase of the land, which is protecting air, water quality,
No.
natural areas,
It was
and
the
wildlife
acquis-
habitat.
No, it was for a parkland and green space that does A, B, and C. Okay? It was not for A, B, and C only. It was parkland and municipal and green space that does A, B, and C. So I'll be happy to include that language and put it in there.
It'd be nice to just, I think, for a time-saving piece in the future, to limit the scope in a way that doesn't give us about a bunch of off-the-wall proposals, that are more expensive, more elaborate than the council thinks is generally where we're going.
What do you mean?
Well, I think the sense that I get from the community is they're not looking to have, an elaborate plan here with, a big parking lot and structures and, buildings and things like that, that we're talking about a pretty conservative plan in terms of, not having this be a big parking lot destination in that respect, and not having buildings and plumbing and all of that run to the space.
Are you talking about Swisher?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
or
so,
we could put it in a park reserve and just, let it sit
Well, I
there.
have a question. So are you objecting to for the consultant to have community input? Are you objecting?
no, I'm just saying it might be nice to give them a little bit more direction in terms of that part of it, so that we're not receiving elaborate proposals that are wasting everybody's time. I think, I don't want to speak for the rest of the council, I think we are all looking at this as being a somewhat conservative sort of request.
I want to make sure that the attractive feature of this land is the forest and not things that we build.
I think putting the bond initiative language in there may just take care of that. And
I
that's
also
why, again,
think that we agreed at the last meeting that Louise was going to take care of this, and so I would like
No,
Louise.
we agreed that Sylvia and Louise would take care of this.
Oh, that's not what I remember.
Okay.
but-
So
we did?
Yeah.
Does anybody?
Oh, okay.
So this is, I think this is railroading an opportunity to collect information from the community. I think there are some clear and stark differences in how the uses of that park and green space are intended by all of us, and I think it's disingenuous for any of us not to put our cards on the table at this point.
Okay,
Because I know some of you just want zero development, some of you want some development, some of you want like very little development, and I don't think that we all disagree. I think the problem is we haven't had an honest conversation about what exactly it is that we all envision. And I've said this before, we are missing the biggest stakeholder, and that's the people.
Could I
Back to
make,
the
could
vote.
I make a very
Go.
plebeian suggestion here? As long as we are going to be floating the comprehensive plan input throughout the community this fall, why don't we talk with MLP about including a question about exactly this, so that we have a citizen input as to what they would like us to do. And that would take care of all of your diverse.
No, I disagree.
I think-
Give the vision program proper
yeah.
and do attention, and we need to do the same. Football forums got the same attention.
Well, we could have a
Why-
forum. You want to have a forum?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The consultants should do that. Otherwise, we are.
We need a visionary process so that we can get funding, because they will look at that to see if we have,
But will
process.
it be a open forum then?
well, it'll be,
Or just their
everybody's
suggestions?
invited, But I do know that you need a visionary process in checking into
Right,
it
I'm
to
just
get
trying to
funding.
figure out how we can do it in
Let the
in
consultant do
an
its job.
eclectic way and include everybody and not form a.
Well, I think comprehensive plan can do one little part, but I think we need a process, a project, a higher,
Right,
a
so
consultant.
if we bring the consultants in, then are we going to have an open forum like we did for football a year ago or for, how are we?
right, it might have to be in a different setting than here, because it'll be a
Yeah.
big,
Yeah, auditorium,
like the
Okay.
university club, or,
yeah.
right,
I
or the
think that
school or
Everybody
something.
can ventilate, and then we'd have,
And that's to send, and we're not at the send stage yet. So I think this is a very good RFP. It definitely needs feedback from all of us, but I think it's a fair one. It allows the city to get a sense of the design philosophy of these folks, and I think we should treat it with no less regard than we have treated the selection of the chief, which involved public input, the public forums on Porta-Potties, the rental program, the football game day, all of which involve significant property rights. And thirdly, I think this is a great way to get an independent person who does this for a living to figure out what's a good proposal or several proposals. I'm not objecting. Maybe the best use is no use of that land, but we don't know that.
I didn't have time to really look at this closely, and
That's
you're
fine.
talking about the RFP.
That's right. Yeah. So, and tonight, as you also see, needs industry or association standard source. All of the samples I reviewed have samples to do with, engineering standards or ADA compliance standards. I think we need something bigger than just, maybe there's a parkland design standard or, green space standard or urban municipal green space. I mean, green space right now is a hot issue. It's everywhere nationally, and I don't think we're going to be needing a whole lot of, we're not going to be lacking ideas on how to use this land.
or not.
Or
Or-
not. Right, but it shouldn't come from this council, it should come from a professional group of people who can help us evaluate proposals against what the bond initiative authorized, which is municipal, parkland, and green space to protect
You wanna
flora,
talk?
streams, and air quality.
Come on up and talk.
Paul,
Yeah. I didn't get to look it over.
I've actually been waiting to know the direction of what University Heights is going for Olive Court, for the beautification project, the comprehensive program. And there's a lot of things that directly affect the business district. I would like to schedule a special meeting for 2 hours so I can unload on you people the specifics of things that Josiah, Kent Ralston, Mid-America, all of these things are involved, so we know how to address them. I mean, we keep talking and talking and talking. These things are creeping up and are going to bite us in our backside. And I keep waiting to find out when I can express my concerns, and you people don't have any idea what you're doing. Because you keep changing, or you rely on this, or we got to go by what the engineer says. What about me?
well, Paul,
And this is the whole thing.
when we
The
met,
public forum needs to know and it's good to have some basis, but all this glorious stuff we're proposing, just like all the things that you want underground electricity, has anybody ever given you a price of how much it's going to cost to convert that stuff?
Paul, when we met with Kent Ralston and all the players and the boys from the hotel, they were going to begin to initiate a plan. I have had no feedback from them. Obviously, you haven't either.
That's correct.
And so I think the first thing I need to do is get a hold of Kent and see where that is, because maybe they could bring that dialogue over here for a couple hours and lay out, because the hotel people are very concerned about what's going to happen on Melrose in front of the hotel.
Well, I am too.
Yeah, and
I've already given or sold or done everything I could
mhm,
on my side of the street, but the electricity comes from across the street,
mhm.
and you want to widen this and widen that and put bike lanes on both sides, but there isn't that much space.
Yeah,
And
and
where are you going to
And,
do this
Paul,
stuff?
I share the same concern with you, and I don't think that, I don't disagree with you that we need a public forum, because my biggest concern about the Melrose improvement is that some properties may be shortened in order to make adjustments for the vision. And I don't think the public knows about that, and I want their input before we seriously start.
Well, we have a
working
grant
on it.
from the DOT, so we're committed to doing it, and it's,
Well, this
I
is
don't know,
the
Dottie,
thing
we
with the
uncommittal on
DOT. You've
I
got
know.
this master or beautification plan,
yeah.
but it isn't common sense, a lot of it. And who's going to pay for it? Me with the taxes.
Well,
And I don't have a chance to voice. I can't vote because I don't live here. And I just don't think I'm getting fair representation for the things that you got on your plate. And I want to unload on you.
well, then
So sometime
we need to
before or after Christmas, we need to have a serious talk.
It needs to be Kent Ralston and the other players that were there that day as well, so
Right.
that they can defend it, because
And
it's-
Josiah.
and Josiah, and he was there also. So,
Like the DOT is taking parking away from the front of my building,
mhm,
the handicap parking spot. I'm supposed to have 2 handicap parking spots for the amount of parking I have on the north parking lot. Where am I going to put that? You
Well,
take it away from
yeah,
me.
it's an
And it
arterial.
sounds good for the DOT and everybody to dictate this
Yeah.
stuff, but we're going to come to some kind of an agreement somehow how to handle, because parking is the only salvation I have for the business district.
Well, part of the problem is the DOT is funding the arterial highway, which happens to be Melrose, just like Sunset.
But the design plan isn't set, and that's part
That's
of
what
the
That's
we're-
what I want to get in
That's
on
right.
a basis
They're-
Right.
because
They've
the
already
concept
started
has
working
been,
on that, because we
Well,
met down there.
the
And Paul was
DOT
there.
has started the concept,
just
but
the
they haven't
concept.
suffered the consequences.
Right.
And so keep me in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So you're going to work on some of that,
Yeah,
Dottie?
because we've already met, all of us, Josiah, City, Kent, Paul, and they were supposed to have something begun and to follow up with us. And I haven't heard a peep, nor obviously neither has Paul. So I will follow up with Kent.
And I'm of the opinion that Paul is right. We have a new composition in council. We have many more new residents in town. And there are some pretty big changes in that DOT proposal that people just need to revisit.
Well, then they can read it.
That's fine. But you know what? That
But-
needs to become public knowledge. So
Well, that's, the metropolitan planning is the source, so.
all right, so then maybe I'll invite the MPOJC to come and give me a refresher.
We have just said that that's what we plan to do.
Okay, so you agree that we should probably have a working session?
No, I am agreeing that we need to have them here to make you understand what they have signed on to as part of the state project.
And the state project is in reference to that grant, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so Dottie, you're going to work on
Yes.
that
Okay.
and report back.
And I'll get the
And-
players sometime.
Okay, thank
Maybe
you.
a special meeting, but
Sylvia, I think you're finished here.
You know what, in the interest of time, let's just move on, but I'm tabling what I said I would table for next discussion.
So, Lisa, I'm sorry, I put you last on the e-government report. It's written. Okay, so your written comments.
What's the status of the network and also obtaining a vendor for our website?
We have been working on the RFP, and I think that we can send it out in September. And we have picked a company that we have gotten references from various municipalities. I think they will be a good vendor for us, and we'll be able to present the RFP and their response back to you guys.
So it's just one person? It's a sole source? Is that what we're doing?
Civic Plus has done work with various entities.
I know who they are. I'm just asking, is it, if you've already selected Civic Pro and you're doing an RFP, it seems odd.
I want to get more information and costs from them, so we are basically asking for 2 proposals from them from a budget standpoint that we will present to the council.
Okay. Can you also let us know who else you looked at so that I can have a sense for who else we looked at? I just want to know. I don't want to be caught off guard with residents asking why Civ Pro was the award of the contract. Thanks.
Are there any announcements? Okay, is there any objection to adjournment? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you very much.